Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Present, Glenn, get out of jail not so free. I am finally out of that jail. I have my mobile phone back, and I really hate to make the call I need to make. I make the call, relay the facts as I know them, and then hang up my phone. I hate like hell to do this, but it's my responsibility. Now to find that scumsucker, son of a bitch-in-law, and kill his butt. I can't believe he married my Jennifer when he had already gotten Miranda pregnant. Present, Liz and Bernie, back in Leadville. I'm hungry and Bernie is going to call for room service as my mobile phone rings. I look at it, see who it is, and swear, damn it to hell. What now? Bernie gives me a questioning look and I say, it's Jens calling again. Bernie, what do I say if she found out about her mother and Megan? Bernie doesn't help at all on this since he shrugs his shoulders and answers, Liz, I don't have any idea what to tell her. Thank God that in the time our conversation takes, Jens gives up and the phone stops ringing. However, it doesn't take long for me to get the dreaded chime indicating a voicemail. I look at Bernie and say, well, I'd better see what sort of voicemail she left. My worst fears are confirmed when I hear, Liz, this is Jens again. What in the frackin' heck is going on back there? I just found out that both my mother and Megan are dead and Samantha did a report on them. Don't you think you should have frackin' called me and told me? I feel both pain and embarrassment as I have let down my best friend. Bernie must read my face because he says, hell, from the pained look on Liz's face, I would swear she is going to have our baby right now. She had put the voicemail on speakerphone, so I heard it. I remember back to her previous phone calls, come up with a possible solution and ask her, hey Liz, didn't you tell Ben about the report Samantha did? I watch her thinking and she excitedly remarks, Bernie, you're right, I did. I interrupt. Then Liz, why the hell didn't he talk to Jens about this before she called you and chewed your butt? Liz grins and says, Bernie, you're right. Why the hell didn't Ben handle this? My phone rings again. I look at it, and of course it's Jens. I answer and immediately ask, Jens, I'm not hiding as much from you as your new husband Ben is. He knew about this the whole time, and he was the one who decided not to tell you until the honeymoon was over. Jens fierily answers, Liz, don't you dare try to dodge the bullet that you have coming. As my best friend, you should have told me when we talked earlier. After I found out about it, Ben told me all about it, and I understood until I about passed out with what she told me next, and it started a hell of a fight. Present, Stacy and Samantha at the building. Sally notices me watching Samantha as she finishes off the rest of the Chex Mix and comments, you look deep in thought. I chuckle a little and reply, yeah, I was remembering when I could eat anything I wanted like Samantha is doing right now and never gain any weight. I sort of miss those days. Sally asks, do you mind if I ask you a personal question? I glance at her and say, sure, as long as it's not about. Sally interrupts. Stacy, I already know not to talk to you about the wedding. This is something else, but more than a little personal. Sally has piqued my interest, so I say, sure, but if I don't like it, I'm not going to reply. Sally takes a deep breath and says, that's fine by me. First, Stacy, I would like to say the interview you did about having the abortion took a lot of guts and I admire you for it, and I do feel it was the right thing to do with the circumstances involved. So here's my problem. I bet before you were pregnant, you had no problems with your weight. I blink a couple times and slowly answer, how did you know? Sally says, Stacy, you're probably suffering from post-abortion stress syndrome. It happens to many women after an abortion. You should probably see a counselor for it since sometimes feelings about the abortion cause eating problems. Oh, and sometimes your body's hormones don't return to normal, so you might want to get that checked too. I thank Sally. Thanks, but how do you know about this? She smiles sadly and answers, some of us have been there and done that. I am surprised that Sally would share that with me. Stacy and Sally look like they're having a huge conversation. It's great to see Stacy making new friends. I worry that she doesn't have many friends, but I realize why. When you have money, many people will be your friend in hopes you will part with some of your money and give it to them. I think about my actions with Stacy, and I worry she might feel that way about me. I walk over beside the two of them and say, Stacy, thank you for everything you've done for me. I hope you don't feel I've taken advantage of you. Stacy laughs and replies, Samantha, you would know if I ever felt that way. Sally was just telling me I should get a medical checkup and possibly some more counseling for my abortion. I was so jealous watching you finish off the Chex Mix and remembered when I could do that without gaining weight. Sally says it's a common thing to have weight problems after an abortion. I volunteer, Stacy, I will research this for you if you wish. Stacy waves her hand in dismissal and says, don't worry about it, Samantha. I can do the research. I realize she's protecting me from my dyslexia, and I'm thankful for it. So far, I've been able to hide it from everyone, and I sure want to keep it that way. Sally finishes with Stacy and says, Thanks for letting me see your building. I am very impressed that you've kept all the important brewery equipment in the building and have worked around it. I sure hope you consider reopening the brewery, since not only would it be good for the town, it will send a positive message to all the townsfolk who resent you for purchasing the old brewery. Stacy's face shows concern as she answers, Sally, I sure hope that you tell everyone I have no plan on destroying this historic building. And if it makes financial, no, that's just not right. Even if it doesn't make financial sense, I think we need to reopen this brewery. I just hope that we can still use this building for my needs. Sally affirms, Stacy, that would be wise and would endear you to the town. And if you don't have room enough for both the brewery and your other needs, there are several other buildings which I will make sure you can purchase at a bargain price. Stacy shakes Sally's hand and says, have a good trip back to your beauty shop, Sam, and I will see you bright and early tomorrow at 8. Sally laughs and says, Stacy, I wake up with the roosters, so don't worry, I will be there. Sally leaves. I look at Stacy and ask, so it looks like you and Sally really bonded. Stacy answers, don't worry, Sam. You and I will always be BFFs. But having Sally as an ally is important for me. I knew Stacy wanted the locals on her side, but I wasn't sure it was so important, so I ask, Stacy, why is it so important to you? Stacy smiles and answers, Sam, Leadville is such a great little town that I'm moving almost all my operations here. I ask, what about the places you own in other locations? Stacy wisely answers, Grandmama taught me that property is one of the best investments you can have. If you knew what she paid for our existing properties and what they are worth now, you would understand. I have no problem at all if the brewery consumes this entire building, as I assume it will, because I will just purchase a new headquarters in Leadville. I blink at Stacy since I can't really understand the depth of her wealth and ask, aren't you worried that someday you might run out of money? Stacy laughs and answers, Sam, there is no way that will ever happen. Even as we are talking, my businesses and investments are automatically earning money for me. I confess to one of my deepest fears, Stacy. I wish I had the financial security you have. It seems like I live from one paycheck to the next. Stacy smiles at me and answers, Sam, you are richer than you imagine. She shocks me when she continues, although I have not said anything. I have purchased some investments for you that are doing quite well. I begin to complain when Bill walks in and Stacy says, Sam, I need to talk with Bill, so please excuse me. Stacy moves to the side. I wonder what she always talks about with Bill, but I know better than to ask. Present, Zarika, Alexei, Yasmin, Safia, Mira, and Ira. The hunters become the prey. I awaken and realize I am restrained like Mira, Ira, and the others. I begin to struggle. Boris comes over, stands above me, pokes me in my stomach, and says, finally you are awake. You will learn the very hard way not to threaten Boris. Now you, your child, and Yasmin will provide me with even more money. I began to cry and Boris teases, Zarika, do not cry. Yasmin has told us of your past, where you were a sex slave, so we decided you needed to do this again. But do not worry. I and all my men will make sure to sample you before we sell you. I struggle. Boris applies the cattle prod to my stomach. I lurch like crazy, then begin to vomit and choke because I have a ball gag in my mouth. As I struggle, Boris finally realizes my problems and orders, Zarika is vomiting. Take the ball gag out of her mouth. They barely take it out in time. I turn my head, vomit up all the food I've eaten in the last few hours and see Alexei and he. I regret more than anyone could imagine assaulting Zarika. I think back to the incident and justify it to myself by thinking she really wanted to have coitus even though she told me no many times. She still seemed to enjoy it, and now Zarika, Yasmin, Safia, and my sisters have been captured by this evil man. He fully intends to sell all of us into sexual slavery. However, he doesn't realize I have never let anyone, not even my love, my Safia, touch my posterior hole, and I never will allow that. I would kill myself or the perpetrator first. I worry as I see Zarika choke because I realize she is vomiting. I begin to move. The scumsucker Boris comes over, looks at me. I motion with my head towards Zarika until the fool finally figures it out and orders her ball gag be removed. The other men remove it, and she vomits up a tremendous amount of food. Then she unwisely threatens, Boris, I will kill. She never gets to finish because Boris shocks her with the cattle prod into unconsciousness. I worry about my child with her. I turn my head in the other direction and see my Safia that I really love. Yes, Zarika was just an opportunity. However, Safia performed so many more things for me that at least I think I loved her. Safia glares at me. Yes, I know she is angry because I had sex with Zarika. I refuse to call it assault, like Yasmin and Zarika wish, because I am still sure Zarika wanted sex. I plead with my eyes. However, it does not do any good. Safia turns her head in the other direction. Then Boris announces, it is time for us to reap. Excuse me, assault the fruits of our efforts. Zarika, since you were a 304 before, you will go first. I turn my head away as Boris and the men begin to assault Zarika. I am impressed that she doesn't make a sound. Then Boris announces, Yasmin, you are next. Unlike Zarika, Yasmin makes a tremendous amount of noise. I glance and see her crying. Then they take my sister Mira, and I cannot bear to watch. Then my sister Ira, who from what I can comprehend, injures several of them. Finally Boris says, Alexei, you are last. I fight like crazy, however. Present, Tom, Inga, Masha, Jack, and the children, flying to Denver. Damn, the lucky old fart Jack is getting a hell of a geisha foot massage from Inga. I look at her with hope in my eyes, and she sticks out her tongue at me. So I comment, only snakes stick out their tongues. The little brat Ivan says, I like snakes, but I know also other things stick out tongue. I glare and confront him. Okay, Mr. Smarty Pants, what the hell else sticks out its tongue? Ivan not only sticks out his tongue, he makes raspberry noises at me and says, I do for one, Mr. Tom, and Inga for another. Dog Shark also stick out tongue when he tired. I decide to put him in his place, so I say, well, Shark licks his balls, so are you going to do that? Ivan begins to ask, Mama, what are balls? Inga interrupts, Ivan, you don't need to know about those right now. Tom, here's what I think of you. Inga sticks out her tongue and gives me the raspberries. Then I can't believe it when Masha does the same. I decide that Inga is busy right now and I can get away with swearing, so I comment, well, screw a duck. I sure don't expect what happens next. I am tired of Tom insulting Ivan and teaching him bad words by swearing. Even though I'm in the middle of a geisha foot massage on Jack, I hop off Jack, run over, tackle Tom, and begin to kiss him like crazy. He sputters and complains, Inga, what the hell? I kiss him on his lips and say, I warned you what was going to happen if you kept swearing. Now quit it, and if you're a very good boy, I might give you a geisha foot massage. Tom relents and says, hell, that's all I really wanted. I lightly slap Tom and comment, well, that swear word just cost you the massage. Tom complains, but Inga, I didn't mean to this time. I am surprised that Masha comes to his defense. Inga needs to keep the possible promise of a geisha foot massage on the table to keep Tom's swearing under control. So I suggest, Inga, I do feel that this time Tom is telling the truth. His bad word was an honest mistake. Ivan adds, Mr. Tom has used up all the $10 he gave me and now owes me another $1. Mama, I like having Mr. Tom around because I earn more money. You have Papa under control and he not say many bad words anymore. Unfortunately, Ivan's comment upsets Jack. What the hell? Ivan feels that Masha has me under control. In a futile attempt at my defense, I complain, Ivan, like hell your mother Masha has me under control. I will say whatever I feel like saying. Ivan claps in glee. Oh goody, Papa upset like I knew he would be. Now I make money from him too. Hell's bells, when did Ivan get smart enough to play me like a violin? Masha, Inga, and Tom begin to laugh. Ivan joins in and says, I learned to be tricksy, so I earn more money. I shoot down his idea by telling him, Ivan, because you were tricksy, you didn't make any money this time. So Inga, when are you going to finish your geisha foot massage? Inga jumps off Tom and answers, right now, mon capitaine. Then she restarts the massage. It feels so good that. Flashback, Jack and Ben, the trip to hell, at the hospital. I had just ordered, or maybe just tried to order, Ben to not go off crazy like he did in Russia, but he grinned at me and said, Jack, that's a great idea. I hadn't thought about taking off like I did in Russia until you mentioned it. Son of a bitch. I sure as hell didn't want to give him the idea. I continued my caution, Ben, Colonel Maggie won't put up with that bullshit like Major M did. He laughed and announced, gotcha, Jack. Of course this isn't Russia, and while I would like to take off and kick, but like I did in the mother country, I can't figure out any way to get the same thing done in this country. I swore, Ben, keep it up, and I will. Ben laughed and interrupted. Jack was feeling his oats and needed to be taken down a notch or two. I laughed and said, you will what? Hell, you couldn't kick but when you were 100% and now with your busted up back, you don't have a snowball's chance in hell. The captain unfortunately overheard what I said, walked over to us and asked, Sergeant Reynolds, what's this about you having a busted up back? I was led to believe that you were fit for duty. I needed to do something fast, so I answered, sorry, sir. Jack's back is a joke that we share. He's fit for duty. Prove it to him, Jack. Bend down and touch your toes. Jack tried to avoid the whole subject by starting what would be an endless number of steps. Okay, but first I need to take off my pack and body armor. The captain waved us off and said, forget it. You two need to head for the roof of the hospital and provide overwatch for us. We began to haul to the roof, and Jack of course complained, damn Ben, keep that yap of yours shut about my back. Flashback, Masha, a rude introduction to America. Tonight had turned out to be worse than ever. After defending myself on the bus from the youthful hooligans who were intent on assaulting me, I was arrested, and now I was in the back of a police car headed to the police station. I fought back the tears which wanted to fall from my eyes. I needed to be strong and wise. We arrived at the police station, and I was thankful that I was taken in a police car, since many of the others on the bus got out of the back of what looked like a delivery truck. We were all taken inside, and once again, I was afforded a slightly more civil treatment. Instead of standing at the desk to talk to the desk sergeant, I was taken back to a desk, and the policeman requested, "Sit in the chair, and I will be back in a few minutes." I complied and waited, and what I saw made me thankful for this special treatment. The police brought in many unruly, loud, smelly, and angry people who shouted at the policeman and physically fought against their restraints. The policeman came back to the desk, sat behind it, sighed and lamented, "What a night." I still fought back the tears and agreed, "Yes, this has been a terrible night for me. All I wanted to do was go and see a movie, and now I could no longer hold back the tears, and a few trickled down my cheeks." The policeman looked surprised and said, "Ms. Reynolds, please don't cry. We have not taken the time to fully explain what is happening, but you misunderstand why you are here. You're not being arrested. In fact, you did us a very large favor tonight." He was correct, as I did not understand, so I inquired, "I do not understand. If I am not arrested, why am I in handcuffs, and what is this so-called large favor I did for you?" The policeman apologized profusely. "I'm sorry, Ms. Reynolds. I forgot about the handcuffs. Let me take those off you." I felt better when he removed the handcuffs. Then he continued, "As far as the big favor, we had been looking for this gang for many weeks. The bus you were on wasn't the first bus they had ransacked. In fact, they usually attacked one bus a night. I will say, you are lucky as hell, because most of the people who fought back, either man or woman, were assaulted and then stabbed multiple times. I had regained some courage, so I asked, 'Then why did you bring me to the police station in handcuffs?' The policeman simply explained, 'Ms. Reynolds, it was for your protection. If the gang thought you were going to get off, then they would have wanted to perform retribution on you. In addition, we need you here to identify the perps in a lineup.'" I did not understand the last part of his statement, so I asked, "What is a perps, and what is a lineup?" He apologized, "Sorry again, Ms. Reynolds. It's what we call police jargon. Perps is short for perpetrator, and a lineup is where they bring in the perps along with other people, and you are asked to select the perps from the many choices standing next to each other in a line. Do you feel like you can identify the perps?" I knew I could, but I had a grave concern. "Yes, sir. I can easily identify them. However, if they see me identify them, will they not want retribution against me?" The policeman laughed. "Sorry once more. I forgot to mention you will be behind a one-way mirror. You can see them, but they will not be able to see you." I continued with my concerns. Will I not be required to identify them at a trial, and will they not see my face at that time? What will keep them from seeking retribution at that time? The policeman looked concerned and tried to make me believe his statement. "Ms. Reynolds, if your testimony is good enough, they will go to jail." I practically laughed and answered, "Sir, do not try to tell me that all these hooligan teenagers will go to prison. I know that some of them will avoid jail time, and then they will seek the retribution you mentioned earlier. So what is to prevent them from attempting to perform that act?" The policeman gave me a sheepish look and admitted, "Ms. Reynolds, you are correct." He tried to continue, but I interrupted. "Sir, before you become concerned, please answer this question for me. If one of the hooligan teenagers came to my home and attempted to injure a person at my home, what would happen if I terminated them?" The policeman asked for clarification. "Are you asking what would happen if they tried to attack you on your property and you killed them?" I replied, "That is exactly what I am asking." He became slightly defensive and asked, "Ma'am, are you sure you would want to kill one of them?" I smiled at him and made him aware of my Russian attitude. "Sir, why not? You have told me they have injured many people without concern for the results of their actions. Sir, they are no longer teenagers or even human beings. They have become rabid animals which need to be terminated." He shook his head and answered, "Ms. Reynolds, I couldn't believe a woman of your caliber could perform such an act." I once again interrupted before he made a fool of himself. "Sir, if they attack me and my property, I most certainly would defend myself and the child I am taking care of." He finally confessed, "Ms. Reynolds, while I couldn't officially condone such an act, you would be justified in defending yourself and any children on your property." I smiled at him and closed the conversation. "Then I will perform your lineup and also appear in court if needed. These hooligan teenagers need to be placed behind bars." He looked relieved and said, "Let's go do the lineup." After the lineup, which was trivial because I could have identified the hooligan teenagers in my sleep, the police officer drove me back to my house. Before I went to sleep, I made sure to take a shotgun out of Jack's gun safe, load it, and place it on the floor beside my bed. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, after dinner. I went to my room after helping Daniela with the dishes, which she complained about. Geez, wouldn't she ever learn? And thought about how Daniela and Jed made lovey-dovey eyes at each other all night long. How in the heck could Daddy have missed that? I decided when you are an old married couple like Daddy and Mother were, that you forgot how to love each other, and did a pinky swear with myself that when Ben and I were married, that would never happen to us. Then I remembered that Daniela found all my hiding places, even the super secret ones for my diary. I rushed to where I kept my diary, checked, and it was still there. Then I looked for the hair that I always placed across the diary, and it was still there. Thank God Daniela didn't read my diary, because I wrote some pretty embarrassing things in it about Ben and me. I wrote a little in it about Daniela and Jed and how I knew that would never happen to Ben and me. Then I kissed the diary, placed a new hair across it, and put it under my pillow as I fell asleep. Flashback. Alexei, at the laboratory. With Chow Mainoff chasing father, I decided that I could finally escape my devil cat-imposed jail. First I checked under my door and didn't see her. Then I carefully opened my door, stuck my head out, and verified that the devil cat was gone. I slipped out of the room, ran down the hallway, rounded the corner, and there she was. She let out a yowl. I reversed direction and ran like my life was in danger, which it was, and heard her yowling as she chased me. I made it back to my room, opened the door, and ran inside, but Chow Mein followed me. I dashed into the bathroom, slammed the door, and locked it. Chow Mein yowled, stuck her paws under the door, and then I realized. My situation was even worse than before. Flashback. Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. My sister Ira made a substantial tactical error when she did not realize that our weapons would be useless against the Hind 24 in which Kostya abided. I, however, used all the gray matter in my cranial carapace and developed a revised plan. I held up several large rocks and suggested, Ira, you are correct. However, these potential projectiles might damage the helicopter. Ira smiled at me and verbalized, Mira, you are correct. If a rock of sufficient size strikes a rotor blade, it could render Kostya's Hind 24 disabled. We began to gather many large rocks at the edge of the precipice. Finally, the Lady of Good Fortune smiled upon us as our tympanic units detected the approach of Kostya's Hind 24. It began to ascend the slope. Ira smiled at me and instructed, now Mira, begin the bombardment. We tossed rocks over the edge of the precipice as rapidly as possible. Unfortunately, many of them passed between the rotors without striking them, until finally one impacted the rotor blade. Then two more impacted the rotor. The helicopter shuddered. The pilot lost control. The helicopter impacted the slope with a tremendous noise. The rotor assembly separated from the helicopter, and it plunged to the valley terra firma. I suggested, Ira, we must have assurance that Kostya was terminated. Ira agreed. Yes, Mira. We will translocate to the helicopter haste of post. We ran down the slope, arrived at the scene of the decimated helicopter, oculated the interior, and were shocked when our tympanic units heard. Flashback. Todd, on the mission. Night fell in the jungle with its normal rapidity. I pulled out my thermal vision glasses, attached them to my helmet, and turned them on. It took a couple of seconds, then the whole world was illuminated in various shades of color, which depicted the heat of the object I observed. This was great because I could see not only the places the sentries were hiding, all 10 of them, I could even see their footsteps as they walked to their locations. I made sure the bull and any other animal surprises didn't lurk around. Then I slipped out of the tree and slowly and silently made my way to the closest sentries. There were 2 of them. I could have taken them out with my suppressed pistol, but that had the potential of alerting the other sentries. So I slipped closer to where I could easily smell their foul stench. Didn't any of these scumsuckers shower? Crept up on the rearmost sentry and slit his throat. He made some noise, and the other sentry turned just in time for my knife to find his throat. 2 down and another 8 to go. I had memorized the other locations, began to slip toward the next sentries, and my thermal glasses found some other human tracks. I paused for a moment and decided that some of the sentries had found a location which was shielded from my thermal glasses. I decided to follow this trail and was thankful when I did. It led to a large tree where my thermal glasses displayed not just footprints climbing the tree, but also the matching handprints. I glanced up into the tree, and for the life of me, I couldn't locate the scumsucker, not until there was a zip and some light. Then a round splat in the ground close to me. Shit. They had a sniper in the tree with a suppressed weapon. I rolled out of the way, heard him call on the radio, and knew my jig was up. The time for stealth was over, so I grabbed a white phosphorus grenade off my vest, pulled the pin, and dropped it at the bottom of the tree. I hauled away from the tree, then I heard the grenade detonate. I turned, and the whole tree was engulfed in flames, and the scumsucker sniper was screaming. Tactics told me my best action plan was to hunker down, off the side of a trail, and wait for the other sentries to show up. It didn't take long as two of the sentries walked right past me. They were noisy as hell, but once again I smelled them before I heard them. I waited until they passed and put 2 rounds from my suppressed pistol into each of them. Then I moved, so when these 2 sentries were discovered my position wouldn't be compromised. I was in the process of moving when I froze since I smelled some more of the scumsuckers. Sure enough, I heard the scumsuckers whisper to each other. Hell, they were close, too damn close. I used their whispers to mark a location, pulled a frag grenade off my vest, pulled the pin, let the handle pop, and tossed it toward their whispers. The area erupted with a deafening noise and a huge flash, and they, along with their smell, was gone. I continued to move away from the location of my last encounter, making sure not to just listen, but to also take time to smell. Then I detected another. No, an unusual smell. It wasn't the stink of the other scumsuckers, it was... shit. I finally realized it was the smell of a woman's perfume mixed with sweat. My scumsucker target had sent out some women as soldiers to take care of me. I watched the grass blowing to determine which direction the wind blew, slowly turned, and began to crawl in the direction of the women. I wasn't sure how I would react when I reached them since I sure as hell didn't like the idea of taking them out. Present, Liz and Bernie, back in Leadville. Yince must have lost every bit of sanity. She was giving me shit about not telling her about Evelyn and Megan. Then she drops an atomic bombshell when she says, "Liz, I'll be back there in a day because the honeymoon is frickin' over. I am finished with Ben and all men. Not only that, I'm getting an annulment." I can't believe it. My legs grow weak, so I sit on the bed and ask, "Yince, what the hell do you mean? Last time I talked to you sounded like things were going great." She answers, "It was going great, but then I got a call from Daddy. He told me that he ran into Miranda at the Leadville jail, and she was pregnant with Ben's baby." Almost automatically I defend Ben. "Yince, didn't you tell me that Ben couldn't get anyone pregnant?" Yince argues, "Well, he sure figured out some way to get that female frickin' dog pregnant. This sure as hell doesn't sound right." Then I remember something else, so I continue Ben's defense. "Yince, just when the hell was he able to do this? Until he decided to let us know where he was. No one, not even Mira, knew where he was. She sure as hell wasn't gone long enough to rendezvous with Ben. Not only that, I know for a fact that she had been visiting a fertility clinic in Denver. Hell, the police were even after her for going crazy and destroying part of the clinic." The phone got really quiet, then I heard some crying, and Yince's voice cracks as she says, "Liz, oh my God, I think you might be right. What did I do?" Ben swore to me that he didn't do anything with Miranda, but I didn't believe him. I called him a lying son of a biatch and ordered him to get out of my life forever. I begin to grab at straws and ask, "Is it too late to call Ben?" Yince shreds the straws by interrupting. "Liz, after I slapped him across the face, he actually fought back some tears and gave me the most hateful look I have ever seen. Then he turned and left the room, leaving his suitcase and everything, even his mobile phone. So I can't call him. I want to swear, but no, it won't do any good. Then I have an idea. Yince, perhaps we can call his credit card company and explain things to them. They might be able to tell us if he bought plane tickets." Yince sounds a little better when she answers, "Thanks, Liz, that's a great idea. Could you do one more thing for me? Could you get the team together again and get them started on finding Ben?" She hangs up the phone. Bernie looks at me and starts, "Don't tell me." I don't even let him finish and interrupt. Apparently Glenn ran into a pregnant Mira in the Leadville jail. She told him she was carrying Ben's baby. Bernie states the obvious. Well, she was going to a fertility clinic, so I guess it worked. But why didn't anyone else know about her going to the clinic? And why did she tell Glenn it was Ben's baby? My brain does a double backflip. I snap my fingers at the result and answer, "Shit, Bernie. This was her plan all along, to break up Yince and Ben." Bernie gives me a questioning look and follows it with an excellent question. "Liz, I'm not sure that assumption is correct. If that was her plan, don't you think she would have confronted everyone earlier and stopped the wedding?" I think about his question, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense. After a pause, I say, "Well, Yince wants me to get the team going on finding Ben." I make one of the hardest phone calls of my life. Present, Glenn, hunting for Ben. I get a call from my daughter and ask, "Wheel, a Heiner ye threw at Dobberit on his crease." I about have a heart attack when she cries into the phone and says, "Daddy, we made a damn big mistake. I just talked to Liz, and she told me Miranda had been going to a fertility clinic in Denver. So Ben didn't make her pregnant." I sputter, "Ma love, who is Ate ken at and who bad you are things?" Jennifer continues to cry, "Daddy, it couldn't be worse." I really unloaded on him and told him I didn't know how many times he lied to me, called him so many bad names that I can't remember all of them, and even slapped him. He walked out of the room and left everything here. She breaks down crying. I make a promise that I have no idea how I will keep. "Ma princess, dornt fash yours. I will fin him." She doesn't even complain about the princess comment, hangs up the phone, and I know I've been played by that Miranda bitch. I'm going to find her and make her suffer 100 times more than she's made my princess suffer. Present, Stacy and Samantha at the building. Bill comes over and gives me some information, which I sort of expected. Miss Summers, after talking with Walt, the retired brew master, it's as we expected that reopening the brewery will require the entire building. I question, how much money will this adventure require? Bill smiles and says, well, because of your wisdom in leaving all the equipment here, surprisingly little. Plus, we're lucky that many of the brewery's previous workers are still in Leadville. So to get the brewery up and running will be about $500,000. The only bad news I have about this adventure is we can't use the original name of the beer because I contacted the previous owners and they refused to sell it. I snap up that offer in a minute and say, Bill, that sounds great to me. I sure never thought I would own a brewery. Now all that we need is a name. Bill grins at me and suggests, Walt and I talked about this and came up with what we think is a great name. He doesn't finish and I can tell he wants me to ask, so I comply. Are you going to make me beg? He continues the grin and relents. Nope. Walt and I decided we would call the beer Stacy's Summer Ale. I get the biggest smile and say, hey, I like that name since it's a great wordplay on both my names. So, if it's real ale, that means the yeast ferments on the top of the barrel and at a higher temperature. Is the brewery only doing one type of beer? Bill grins some more and gives additional information. Oh no, they were set up to do 6 different beers, and we also came up with a name for your second beer. Again, Bill makes me wait, so I stamp my foot in frustration and complain, Bill? Bill holds up his hands and interrupts. How about Grandmama's Summer Stout? I smile like crazy. Bill thought of not only me, but Grandmama, so I nod. Bill, those are both excellent names. Now let's get moving on this. I motion to Samantha. She begins to walk toward us, and I continue. Sam and I are going to town to talk with Sally about finding a new building for our base of operations, and we're going to get our hair finished while we're there. Please make all the arrangements with Walt and the other workers. Then call the contractors and get them lined up to start on remodeling the new building when we find it. Samantha arrives right as Bill asks, so should we give them the standard workers package? I ask because with the depressed economy here, we could get by paying them much less. I slightly scold Bill. You should know better than to ask me that. Of course we will give them the standard package. Bill smiles and says, that's one of the reasons I like working for you. We are all treated fairly and you never take advantage of situations. Samantha asks, so Stacy, you're hiring new workers? Stacy smiles at me and answers, that right. We're reopening the brewery and I need workers to run it. Now Sam, you and I need to head to town to talk to Sally and get our hair finished. I ask, I thought we were doing this tomorrow? Stacy informs me. Bill said that the brewery will use this whole building, so we're going to talk with Sally about a new headquarters building, and I figured we would kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so we would have more time tomorrow. I start to ask, so tomorrow where? Stacy interrupts. Sam, tomorrow is a surprise, so I'm not going to tell you about it. Now let's go and talk to Sally. I was certainly curious about what Stacy had planned for tomorrow, but I knew she had made up her mind to not tell me. Present, Alexei, Zarika, Yasmin, Safia, Mira, and Ira. The hunters become the prey. I can't hold back the tears. Nothing like that has ever happened to me before, and if we don't escape, then I can look forward to that continuing until I kill myself. Zarika looks at me, sees my tears, and because she's still not gagged, laughs and taunts. Now you know what that feels like, you scumsucker. Boris walks over and shocks Zarika with the cattle prod. She jumps like crazy, and he demands, why the hell doesn't she have the ball gag in her mouth? One of the men walks over to Zarika, roughly pulls back her head, but she offers, please, if you don't put that in my mouth, I will do other things with my mouth. Boris laughs and answers, now that's a real 304 talking. I'm going first, and Missy, if you dare bite me, I will push this cattle prod all the way inside you and shock you until you die. I start to turn away when Boris commands, all of you watch this and learn, especially you, Alexei. After I'm done with Zarika, I will have all of you perform the same. I gather from the way Boris grunts that Zarika is doing something very special, much more special than Safia ever did for me. He doesn't last long, moves over to Yasmin and says, it's your turn, bitch. When Yasmin does not perform as well as Zarika, Boris slaps her and says, you're doing it all wrong. He stands up and makes good on his threat to Zarika by shocking Yasmin until she passes out. Then he roughly assaults her. My sister Mira must do okay because he doesn't complain. He looks at my other sister Ira and says, there's no way I trust you to do this. So he just shocks her for several minutes with the cattle prod. Then unfortunately, it's my turn and I don't know what to do. I try my best, but receive many beatings for my poor performance. Finally, the torture is over. They put black cloth bags over our heads and roughly haul us outside and into a vehicle. Boris laughs and says, the rest of you take the vans, since Alexei doesn't need it anymore. I'm taking his Bentley. Present, Stacy and Samantha, in town. We drive to Sally's beauty shop and find that she's holding court telling all the other women about our building. We walk in and over here. And Stacy might even reopen the brewery. One of the women points to us. Sally turns to see who just came in, blushes and apologizes. Sorry about that. I was just letting everyone know about all the good you've done at the old brewery. I dismissively wave my hand and say, don't worry about it. But you do have the details wrong. Sally displays some confusion and asks, what do you mean? I tease her a little. Well, we're leaving. Sally's mouth falls open and she begs, please don't tell me you're leaving Leadville. I grin at her and say, oh no, there's no way we're leaving Leadville. However, I was told that the brewery, which we are in the process of reopening, will use the whole building. So Sam and I are here to take you up on the offer to help us find a new building for our offices. We are immediately bombarded by questions from the court. I hold up my hands and say, sorry, but I don't have time right now to give you all the details. We need to get moving on finding a new headquarters building and then moving my people here. It's surprising when the other women who compose Sally's court begin to clap and cheer, and even more surprising when they come over and begin to hug me. One of them asks, my husband used to work at the brewery. I interrupt. We've already talked to Walt, and we are looking into hiring as many of the employees that used to work there as possible. One of the ladies in Sally's court walks up and introduces herself. Miss Summers, I am Mary and a realtor, and I think I know the perfect building for you. Sally adds, Stacy, you can't go wrong using Mary. She knows about all the buildings in town. I hold out my hand. Mary shakes it, and I say, well, let's go see this building. The first building she take us to, I don't like, so I say, Mary, I would prefer a building that's walking distance from the brewery. Mary wisely asks, do you have any other preferences in a new building? I begin to think, and Samantha answers, looking for a new building with Stacy is exciting because I don't even really have a place to call home. When Mary asks Stacy what other requirements she has, I interject, Mary, I know Stacy because we're BFFs. She really loves her current building and wants something close to it. Stacy adds, yeah, who knows? I might want to drop in for a beer or two over lunch. Mary looks at both of us and asks, Sally was bragging to us about your chef. Have you thought of opening a restaurant in the brewery? I smile at Stacy and say, you know, I was talking to the chef and he was complaining that he didn't have enough work. It might be a good idea to open a restaurant. Stacy smiles and finally says, Sam is correct. I like the brewery building because of the location and the history of the building. My only other requirement is, as I mentioned, it needs to be within walking distance of the brewery. And we will talk to the chef and see how he feels about opening a restaurant. Mary pulls out a paper notebook, looks at it, and says, you know, I think I have the perfect building for you. It used to be a textile mill and has tons of history behind it. I ask, Mary, why don't you use a tablet for that instead of a paper notebook? Mary answers, probably because this is the way I have always done things. Besides, I would need an internet connection for the tablet. I have an idea to discuss with Stacy later. We drive to the brewery, park the van, and Mary says, follow me please. We walk a short distance, up a slight hill, and see a marvelous old brick building. It has many facets around the windows. Unfortunately, most of the windows have been broken by vandals, and the drain pipes off the roof are topped by gargoyles. What sets it apart from the rest of the buildings are the corners facing us. They are rounded battlements and make it look like a castle. Even the main entrance is an arch. At the top of the hill is another building. Stacy notices it, points at it, and asks, what about that building? Mary looks at it and says, you don't want that building. It's the old or processing plant and would cost a fortune to clean up. We notice several vans and a really nice car drive away from the building, and Mary remarks, I wonder what those people were doing there. Don't they know it's an environmental waste site? Excuse me a minute while I call the sheriff. Mary calls the sheriff. Stacy looks at the building we're standing in front of and asks, Sam, what do you think about this building? I giggle and answer, Stacy, it looks like a castle. If you buy it, could I have one of the corner rooms? Stacy smiles at me and says, no problem, other than I want one of those rooms too. I begin to fantasize, Stacy, could we put in an outer wall and a moat? Stacy answers, I think the outside wall would ruin the ambience of the castle, but a moat could be a great idea. Mary finishes her call, comes back and says, well, what do you think? Stacy says, well, let's take a look inside. Mary has the keys, begins to unlock the door, and complains, someone left the door unlocked. I want to rush inside, but Stacy cautions, Sam, let's get Bill and the team up here to make sure the building is safe. Mary starts to argue and Stacy stops her. Mary, we are going to do this my way, especially since you noticed the strange vans and cars leaving the building at the top of the hill. Stacy takes out her mobile phone, calls Bill, then we see him and the team exit the brewery and run up the hill toward us. Present, Masha, Inga, Tom, Jack, and the children, flying to Denver. I am amazed at how Inga has fixed my Jack's back. He is so relaxed from the massage, and probably the large dose of vodka earlier, that he falls asleep. Inga carefully steps off him so he doesn't wake, and I whisper, "Thank you so very much, Inga. Jack's condition is improved so much that we won't need the hospital." Tom hears my statement and says, "Well, I'm going up to the pilot and tell them to turn this plane around." He leaves. Inga smiles and says, "It is not big deal, Masha. I can't stand to see people in pain." I bravely hope, "Do you think it would be possible to teach me how to do what you did to Jack?" Inga smiles and replies, "Sure, because Jack is going to need several more treatments before he's finished." Inga giggles and says, "Masha can certainly learn how to treat Jack like I did. I only have one concern. She's larger than I am and might be too heavy for Jack." I suggest, "Masha, why don't we practice on Tom?" "Oh, film." Tom comes back from talking with the pilot, walks up, and I order, "Tom, we're going to teach Masha how to give Jack the same treatment I gave him. And we're going to practice on you." Tom falters. Inga not to complain. I interrupt. "Tom, almost all you do is complain, so stop it. We're not going to hurt you, and you might even enjoy it." I giggle a little and continue. "Well, at least no more pain than a big, strong man like you can tolerate. Now take off your shirt and lay on the gurney." Tom looks at the gurney and of course complains, "Inga, the gurney is going to be cold." I practically swear, "Tom, do not be such a baby." I walk over and spread a blanket over the gurney and continue. "There, is that better?" Tom smiles and admits, "Yeah, that will work." He takes off his shirt and climbs on the gurney. I motion to Masha, and she comes over. I begin the examination of Tom's back and narrate, "Masha, the first and hardest thing you need to do is identify if they have any injuries. It's also the most painful part for the person." I begin to palpitate Tom's back, and he complains, "Son of a..." I don't let him finish and interrupt, "Tom, why didn't you tell me you have a bad back? Masha, come over here and feel this." Masha puts her hands on Tom's back, and of course he complains, "Hey, your hands are cold." Masha apologizes, "Sorry, Tom." Now, Inga, what am I supposed to feel? Shoot, I didn't think that she would have trouble feeling the discrepancies in Tom's back. Then I realized that being married to Jack, she probably hasn't ever felt a normal back. I order, "Tom, keep your eyes closed. I need to take off my shirt so Masha can feel my back, which has no injuries." I take off my shirt and notice that Tom doesn't keep his eyes closed, but then I was confident he wouldn't. I lie on the floor and tell Masha, "Now feel my back. Then we will move back to Tom, and you will notice the difference." Masha palpitates my back and comments, "Inga, the muscles in your back are soft, while Tom's muscles are hard." We move back to Tom, and I comment, "That's right. The tightness in the muscles is a sign of injury or a sign of the person not stretching often enough." Now notice how the right side of Tom's back is worse than the other? Masha feels Tom's back. Thank God he doesn't complain this time and answers, "Yes, I feel how this muscle right here is." Tom jumps and complains, "Hey, that hurt." I caution Masha, "Be careful how much pressure you apply to the back, otherwise you will engage Tom's complaint factory." I carefully touch Tom's back and continue, "See, his complaint factory isn't engaged when you carefully palpitate his back. Now you try it." Masha tries it more gently, and this time Tom doesn't complain. I look carefully at Tom's back and order, "Tom, you need to loosen your belt. I need to check something." I wait for the complaint, but this time it doesn't come as he rises up, loosens his belt, and lies back down. I slightly slip down his pants, and it's just as I suspected. I comment, "Masha, Tom's back has an issue that Jack's back doesn't. Tom's pelvis is rotated forward on the right side, probably because of the injury." I point to what I see and continue, "Do you see what I'm talking about?" Masha looks at Tom's back, shakes her head, and says, "Inga, I really do not see that. It's so natural for me to see these things that I did not expect Masha to have any difficulties." I reassure her, "Do not worry about it. Jack doesn't have this problem, so you won't need to do this." I warn Tom, "Tom, this is not going to be very comfortable for you." Tom begins to complain, however I don't wait to hear it. I slide my fist under the right side of his hip, put my left arm on his low back, and push down as hard as I can. There's a satisfying crack. Tom jumps like crazy and complains, "Hell, Inga, you should have let me prepare myself." I continue with my narration as if Tom had said nothing. "Masha, you never want to let them prepare because they tense up, and then you can't do the adjustment." I spank Tom's butt and comment, "Do not worry, the worst is over for now." I show Masha how to position Tom for the normal back adjustment and how to perform them, and I'm happy to see that she does better than I do, probably because she's larger than me. I have Tom move to the floor and begin to give him the geisha foot massage. Then I have Masha try, and Tom complains, "Damn, Masha, that hurts." I caution Masha, "Because you are larger than I am, you might need to support part of your weight with a chair." We try it again, this time using a chair for some support. Tom doesn't complain. In fact, he quickly falls asleep. I help Masha off Tom and say, Well, we are done. Masha asks, do they always fall asleep? I giggle and answer, almost always. Now how about we have some of your daughter's vodka? Flashback, Jack and Ben, the trip to hell, at the hospital. We were hauling to the roof after Ben practically ruined everything by letting the captain overhear his comment about my back, opened the roof access door, and all hell broke loose. I swore shit. We should have known that the captain hadn't cleared the roof. Ben slammed the door and said, "Grenade." We both dove to the floor as the roof access door was shredded. I yelled, "Grenade my butt." That was too big for a grenade. Ben looked at me and shocked me when he said, Jack was right, it was more than a grenade. It was one of our claymores the scumsuckers threw at us and then detonated. I looked at Jack and said, "Jack, you're bleeding." Jack said, "Where?" "I don't feel a thing." Ben pointed to my back and complained, "Damn, Jack, how many of those pain pills did you take? You have a piece of metal from the door sticking out of your butt." Jack began to squirm around, and I ordered, "Jack, stay on your belly and lie still. You don't want to pull that out." Gunfire masked Jack's reply as the scumsuckers had moved to the now missing roof access door. I was pissed and decided to end this firefight in the biggest hurry I could manage. I pulled 2 grenades off my tactical vest, pulled the pins, popped the handles, and tossed them through the opening in the roof. The roof erupted in screams and burning flesh. Jack swore, "Damn, Ben, what are you doing using incendiary grenades? Now the whole place smells like..." I laughed and interrupted. "It smells like toasted camel jockeys." The captain and other Marines finally showed up, and the captain asked, "What the hell is going on? It smells like shit up here." I stood up and answered, "You forgot to clear the roof, and we about bought the farm." Jack interrupted, "It smells like shit because Ben cooked up some lunch with his incendiary grenades." The captain complained, "Hell, now we have to live with this smell. Okay, you two get your butts on the roof." I pointed to Jack and said, "Sir, what are you going to do about the piece of metal sticking out of Jack's butt?" I couldn't believe what the captain said next. Flashback, Masha, a rude introduction to America the next day. The alarm seemed to come extremely early this morning, perhaps because I did not sleep adequately last night. I knew Louise and Linda were coming today, so I forced myself out of bed and did my morning exercises while drinking a cup of very strong tea. I probably could have used some coffee, but I had never developed a taste for it. To me, it tasted like dirty water. I took a shower and prepared myself for the day. I was apprehensive over telling Louise about last night, but I knew it was my duty. Louise arrived at 5:45, so I opened the door and went out to help her with Linda. Louise started the conversation. "Did you watch the news this morning? Apparently some woman helped the police capture the gang, which had been terrorizing the city buses. I didn't think there was anyone that could stop them, let alone a woman." Thank God Louise couldn't see me blush. I was now even more apprehensive concerning telling Louise. I did not lie when I answered, "No, I did not have time today to listen to the news." Louise continued with her praise. "Well, if you ask me, this woman must be some sort of superhero, like Supergirl." We walked into the house, and I tried to downplay it. "I am sure she was terrified." Louise interrupted, "Nah, I don't think so because she kicked butt and took names." I began to cry and confessed, "Louise, I know that she was terrified because I am the woman on the news." Linda saw me crying, so she began to cry. Louise rushed over to me, with Linda in her arms, hugged me, and said, "Masha, stop crying. I am so proud of you. Some of my friends on a different bus were attacked by those teenagers." I interrupted, "Louise, we need to discuss this because my foolishness could put Linda in danger. The police said the teenagers might come after me, and if Linda was here." Louise put her finger over my lips to silence me and said, "Masha, if what the news report said is even half true, I feel even safer now with you taking care of Linda. By the way, do you think you could teach me how to do some of what you did?" I am more than amazed. I am shocked and ask, "Are you sure you still want Linda to stay here?" Louise hands Linda to me and confirms, "Hell yes. If you fought like that on a bus full of people you didn't even know, you'd kill anyone that threatened our Linda in your house." I remarked on Louise's choice of words. "Our Linda? Louise, what do you mean?" Louise matter-of-factly said as she walked out the door, "Masha, you're sort of like the older sister I've always wanted, so in my mind, you're Linda's aunt. It's great to know my older sister is also a superhero. Oh, by the way, don't bring Linda to the store today because we have a meeting over lunch. I can't wait to tell all the other girls at work that you are the superhero from the bus. They will be so jealous." With that, Louise was gone. Linda smiled at me, made goo noises, and pulled at my hair. I began to play with Linda and thought all day about what Louise had said. It was foreign to me to consider being an older sister to someone I had just met, let alone an aunt. However, I could not deny the warm feeling building in my chest. We were in the middle of playing when the phone rang and scared both of us. I was concerned when I answered it and heard. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, The next day, there's a knock on the door which wakes me out of a great dream. Of course it was about Ben and me. I yawned and Daniela announced, "Miss Jennifer, it is time for breakfast. If you do not come down soon, I will feed it to the dog." I yelled my reply, "We don't have a dog." Daniela really motivated me when she laughed and said, "You are correct, so I will have to feed it to your father." I replied in a panic, "Don't you dare give Daddy my food. I will be right down after I take care of some necessary things." Daniela added, "Miss Jennifer, you have 5 minutos, then your father gets your food." If I could bring myself to really swear, I would have sworn at that. Instead, I decided I needed to start setting my alarm. Yeah, this wasn't like when Mother was here and I could sleep as late as I wanted, wake up, eat a bowl of cereal, and then even go back to bed if I felt like it. I rushed into the bathroom, hurriedly took care of my business, splashed a little water on my face, and ran downstairs right as Daniela was starting to put my food on Daddy's plate. I ordered, "Oh no you don't. I'm here and Daddy sure as heck doesn't need more Riri food." Daniela and Daddy both laughed, and Daddy said, "Gotcha, my perfect princess." I stamped my foot and complained, "Daddy, I am neither perfect nor a princess." Daniela said, "I beg to differ, Ms. Jennifer. To your father you are both perfecto and a princessa." I came up with an evil idea and ordered, "Well, if I am a princess, then I want to be treated like one. I want my frickin' breakfast in bed." I spun around, began to march upstairs when Daddy countermanded, "Young lady, don't you dare leave this kitchen." I spun back around, stuck my tongue out at them, and said, "Huh? Who got who now?" We all laughed. I sat at the table and was shocked when Daniela put rice, chicken, and beans on my plate. I looked at it and asked, "What is this?" Daddy said, "My Jennifer, you're a little slow this morning. It's called breakfast." I poked at the massive amount of food on my plate with my fork and stated, "This looks more like lunch or dinner." Daniela replied, "Ms. Jennifer, this is a typical breakfast in Peru." Daddy decided I needed a little attitude adjustment, so he said, "I think my daughter woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. Stop complaining and eat your breakfast." Daniela asked, "How could Ms. Jennifer wake up on the wrong side of the bed? One side of her bed is against the wall." I had put some rice in my mouth, started to laugh, and choked on the food. Daddy jumped up from the chair, ran over to me, and asked, "Can you talk?" I coughed a few more times and said, "Yes, I can talk." "Daddy, if you are going to use American euphemisms, then you need to explain them to Daniela." Daddy laughed and agreed, "Jennifer, you're right. Daniela waking up on the wrong side of the bed means that Jennifer woke up crabby." Daniela gave Daddy a funny look and asked, "Senor, why would Ms. Jennifer wake up like a cangrejo?" Daddy and I looked at each other in confusion, and I asked, "Daniela, what the heck is a cangrejo?" Daniela shook her head and remarked, "Dios mío, I forget you do not speak Spanish." A cangrejo is an animal that lives in the ocean with a hard shell and runs sideways. Daddy laughed and said, "No, Daniela, I did not call Jennifer a crab. When you call someone crabby, it means they are difficult to get along with." Daniela laughed and said, "Thank you, senor, for correcting me. I still have many things to learn in English." I offered, "Daniela, I think it would do both of us good if we learned some Spanish." Daddy agreed. "Yes, Jennifer is right. I would love to learn some Spanish." Daniela smiled and said, "We will try to teach both of you. But you must understand I speak Peruvian Spanish, not Castilian Spanish." Daddy asked, "What is Castilian Spanish?" Daniela answered, "It is the Spanish they speak in Spain. In the rest of the world, we speak Spanish differently." Daddy looked at his watch and said, "Jennifer, we need to get going." I gave Daddy a shocked look and answered, "What? Where are we going?" Daddy answered, "Did you forget we have a meeting with the psychologist today?" I glared at Daddy and countered, "No, I couldn't forget what you didn't tell me." Daddy said, "Oh well, consider yourself told now. We need to leave in 10 minutes. I complained, 10 frickin' minutes, I haven't showered yet." Daddy teased me, "Well, if you didn't sleep till noon." I jumped up from the table and threatened, "The next time you call me princess, that's exactly what I will do." Now I have to hurry. I ran up to my room to get ready for the frackin' shrink. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. Chow Mein, who was now totally insane, had tricked me out of my room, chased me back into my room, and had me trapped in my own bathroom. She continued her infernal yowling and kept sticking her paws under the door. I was frightened and began to breathe strangely until I became dizzy. Chow Mein made me feel worse when she increased her assault on the door by employing her teeth. She began to rip pieces off the bottom of the door. I was too dizzy to stand, so I sat on the floor, and then I saw that Chow Mein had succeeded in opening a small hole in the door. I knew I had to do something, because soon she would be in the bathroom, and after seeing what she did to my mother, I did not want her doing the same to me. My mind was burdened from the fear and my breathing problems, but I applied myself and finally came up with an idea that might save me. I ran to the towel rack, took my big bath towel, and waited by the hole which Chow Mein had enlarged. She finally enlarged the hole enough to put her head through the hole. I grabbed her around the neck with the towel, pulled her through the hole, ran over to the toilet, then threw her and the towel into the toilet. I slammed the lid before she could escape and sat on the closed lid. Chow Mein created a terrific racket and tried to escape. I decided to aggravate her more, so I flushed the toilet repeatedly. Each time I did, she renewed her assault on the closed toilet seat. Finally, the orderlies and the psychologist ran into my bathroom, and I said, Chow Mein ripped a hole in my bathroom door, and I trapped her in the toilet. The psychologist asked, did she harm you, Alexei? I answered, no, sir. I used the towel when I grabbed her and put her in the toilet. The psychologist further informed me, Chow Mein severely injured your father, and we worried about you. You were very brave and wise to capture her. Chow Mein continued her assault on the toilet seat, so I asked, how am I to vacate my location without letting Chow Mein escape? The psychologist ordered, the orderlies will hold down the seat. Once you are free, then we will leave your room and barricade ourselves in my office. I asked, is it necessary to hide in your office? He answered, most certainly. Chow Mein has terrorized the entire laboratory, and my office is one of the few safe places. The orderlies held down the toilet lid. I hopped off the seat, grabbed the psychologist's hand, and we ran to his office. Flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. We incorrectly assumed we had terminated Kostia, but when we approached the helicopter we heard the disembodied voice, good try girls. However, as you can see, I was not on the helicopter. Ira swore, male offspring of a female Saluki. Mira, he has avoided our trap. Kostia further taunted, and now my girls, I know your location and have a present headed your way. I looked at Ira and hurriedly instructed, my sister, translocate with haste of post. We ran down the slope and reached the bottommost of the valley while a rocket whooshed overhead and destroyed the top of the precipice. Ira yelled. I instructed my sister, Mira, locomotivate rapidly. The precipice is tumbling toward our corporeal selves. We dashed away from the precipice in what we perceived was a timely manner. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I continued my quest to find the women the scumsucker had sent out as soldiers. My task proved to be more difficult than locating the men. The men were easy because of their stench and their noise. With the exception of the tree-born sniper, I had maintained an advantage by finding their forces before I was discovered. But even though I used all my skills and spent much of my time waiting and listening, all I could get from the women was the occasional wafting of perfume on the slight breeze. I continued onward in a careful crawl until... Shit. Present, Liz and Bernie, back in Leadville. I make a call to the cabin, talk to Gretchen, tell her what's going on, and she yells into the phone, Liz, what the hell is wrong with Jennifer? We finally help her find Ben, which was practically an impossible job, and she kicks him out? I know I need to smooth things over, so I respond, Gretchen, don't blame Jennifer for this because it really is Myra's fault. She met Glenn in the Leadville jail and told him she was preggers with Ben's baby. Gretchen mirrors my feelings when she replies, Liz, I know those three are your bodyguards, but I never did trust them. There's a short pause, I wait, and Gretchen adds, you know those three are missing. I know that, and reply, yeah, Bernie and I stopped by the tunnels, and Alexei told me they were hunting for Zarika and Yasmin. Gretchen interrupts, Liz, it's not just the twins. Alexei is also missing, and he took his car. I want to comment about how that is a good thing, but instead I say, by the way, Gretchen, if you should come across any of the three, make sure you tell them they are fired. Gretchen backpedals in a hurry. Liz, there is no way I'm going to tell any of them that because they scare the hell out of me. I laugh and agree. Don't worry, Gretchen, they sort of scare the hell out of me too. By the way, we are staying in Leadville at the Delaware Hotel. Bernie is sick and tired of living in the tunnels. Shit, I almost forgot. Jens will be back tomorrow. Gretchen wisely suggests, Liz, I don't think Jennifer will be in any shape to handle the mess she created with Ben, so we should probably have a team meeting before then. I accept the wisdom of her thought. Gretchen, we will be there as soon as I get something to eat. Gretchen shocks me when she asks, Liz, how far along are you? I sputter, I am not sure, we just found out today. How in the hell did you know? Gretchen laughs. Liz, not to be rude, but you've put on a few pounds, have been eating like crazy, and well, you have this glow about you. I end the call. Bernie looks at me, smiles, and says, so Gretchen figured it out too? I smile at him and answer, hell yes she did. Why am I the last to know? I don't want to wait for room service, so let's head out and get something to eat, then get to a team meeting at the cabin. Bernie corrects me, you mean the tunnels. I laugh and interrupt. Bernie, I never knew how much you really hated the tunnels. But there's a real possibility that we might have to move back in there to help support Jens. I am shocked when Bernie puts his foot down. Present, Glenn, hunting for Miranda. I decide that Miranda and her sister must be at the tunnels under the cabin. I feel I might be able to take on one of them. but there's no way in hell I could handle both of them. So I make a decision which requires an action that I just plain hate. I walk back to the jail and talk to the sheriff. "Ho, ye sheriff. I wonder if ye would reconsider releasing Hammer Tammy?" The sheriff gives me a strange look and responds, "Well, Glenn, what changed your mind?" I pause for a moment, consider lying to him, but I figure he deserves the truth, so I say, "I'll fund it at Miranda. Take the body pregnant lassie ye hud in your jail at escaped Wisney pregnant Wybens bairn. I intend te fin, will make pay for th damage she's caused." The sheriff looks at me and says, "Hell, I could have told you that if you would have asked me. And what sort of damage did she cause?" I honestly answer, "I called Maui Jennifer and told her a bit Miranda being pregnant. She became ragin' through Bennett." The sheriff exploded, "You did what?" "I would say that you created the problem, not Miranda, and you need to fix the mess you've created." I hang my head and agree. "Okay, sheriff, it is my foe and I'll want ot fix it, but Gani after bath I teach twins aloin is akin to suicide. Sae I am a skin, ye te release Hammer in my custody." The sheriff says, "Okay, but if he gets drunk and messes up my town, you're both going back into jail until hell freezes over." I smile, thank him and say, "Dorn't fash your sheriff. Hammer only drinks when he doesn't hay a job ot day." Unfortunately, the sheriff remembers. "Oh yeah, if that's the case, then what happened during the raid on Stacy's?" I provide additional facts. "I forgot. He also likes a wee bevy when he has a hangover." The sheriff wisely cautions, "Well, he has a bad hangover now, so make sure he doesn't drink the whole town dry." I promise and hope Hammer will comply. "Okay, sir. I will make sure Hammer doesn't jai bluttered." "Noah, will you release him to me?" The sheriff laughs. "Heck, I'm happy to have him out of my hair." He walks back to the jail, comes back accompanied by Hammer. Then Hammer surprises me by saying, "Wouldn't teach bloody heel day you want?" I tell him what the hell happened, and I can't believe what Hammer says and does next. Present, Stacy and Samantha, in town. Bill and the team arrives and I ask, "Bill, the door for this building was unlocked. Please make sure the building is safe for us." Mary says, "I'm sure it's fine." Bill scolds her, "Ma'am, Miss Summers acted correctly. It is easier to make sure the building is safe than to try to rescue all of you from a dangerous situation." Bill and the team enter the building while we wait. It takes about 10 minutes, then Bill comes out and says, "No one is in the building, so it's safe." He pulls out a pistol, hands it to me, and scolds me this time. "Miss Summers, you really need to carry a weapon with you at all times." I take the pistol, accept the admonition, and say, "Thanks, Bill. You're right." He looks up the hill and says, "It looks like the sheriff is checking out that building. I wonder if he would like some help." I smile at Bill since I know he misses the excitement of when he was in the military, so I suggest, "You won't know unless you ask." He wisely orders 2 of the men, "Stay here and accompany Miss Summers." Bill leaves and Mary comments, "Stacy, do you really?" I interrupt her. "Yes, Mary, the first do feel this was necessary, and if you had received the threat Samantha and I have, you would understand. Now let's see if we're buying this building." The 5 of us walk inside. I wasn't sure that Stacy knew about the threats I had received. It was good to know that she did, but I questioned how she knew about them. We all walked into the building, and it was incredible. I had dreams when I was a little girl about owning a castle, and this was, well, it was the closest thing to a castle I had ever seen. I sure hoped Stacy would buy it. I guess Stay can read my face better than I realize because she smiles at me and says, "Sam, you look like you're in heaven." I feel my face grow hot as I blush and say, "Sorry, Stacy. It's just this building looks so much like a castle, and I had dreams when I was a little girl about living in a castle." Stacy answers, "I can remember dreaming that too. In fact, Grandmama bought a castle when I told her that." She looks at Mary and asks, "So how much are you asking for this building?" Mary asks, "Don't you want to see the rest of the building?" Stacy smiles at me and says, "Not really. However, it will have to pass an inspection and get the approval of my structural engineer." Mary and Stacy begin to negotiate on the price, and I am amazed at how easy it is for Stacy. Mary finally says, "That's my last and lowest offer." Stacy shakes Mary's hand and says, "Sorry to hear that. I also guess we will use a Denver realtor for when I bring all my employees to Leadville." We turn, begin to walk away, and Mary says, "Stacy, if you could wait a minute, let me make a couple of phone calls." Mary moves away to make her calls in private, and I say, "Stacy, how did you?" Stacy interrupts, "Sam, I know what all the property in Leadville is worth." Mary was trying to inflate the price so she could get a larger commission, and because she knows that I have money, she is calling the bank that owns this building and will come back with a lower offer, which I also won't accept. We will get this building for my price. I ask Stacy, "How do you know that?" Stacy smiles, gets ready to answer, but Mary comes back and interrupts. "Okay, here's the absolute lowest price I can give you." She declares the amount. Stacy smiles and says, "Mary, Did you happen to tell the bank who was buying the building? Mary's face is a mirror of confusion and she admits, no, I didn't think that was important. Stacy orders, Mary, please call them back and tell them I, Stacy Summers, want this building. Mary moves away again to place the call, and Stacy says, watch Mary closely. I watch and study Mary's face. She shows a little anger, then comes back over and spouts, Stacy, you could have told me your bank owns this property instead of wasting my time. Stacy smiles and says, yes, Mary, I could have, but then I wouldn't have known how you work. Now here's the deal. As I said earlier, I am moving my people here, and I will need a good realtor to help them find places to live. If you work hard to get them the best prices on the properties they are interested in, especially the ones my bank doesn't already own, then you have the job. If not, then I will use someone else. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, I will pay you $3,000 for helping us today. Mary thinks for a few moments and admits, well, I really can't complain about this deal. Stay continues, I forgot to mention, you will only make 5% on your sales to my people. Mary asks, how many people are we talking about? Stacy answers, 500 to begin with, but possibly another 500. It's almost like I can see the cash registers recording the sales in Mary's head. She nods and says, Stacy, you're going to be the largest employer in Leadville. It will be an honor working with you. Stacy looks at me, grins and shocks me by saying, well, Samantha, how do you like your new castle? I sputter, my castle. Stacy, what do you mean? Stacy smiles at me and simply says, well, Sam, you always wanted a castle, so I figured we would give you this one at a great price. I gasp and tell Stacy, but I don't. Stacy interrupts, Sam, did you forget how I told you about the accounts I set up for you? You have more than enough money to purchase this castle, especially at the price we want for it. Then she cautions, however, you need to go slow on fixing it up because you can't do it all at once, and we'll have to prioritize what to fix first. I run over, hug Stacy, and begin to cry. How can I ever repay you? Stacy again interrupts, Sam, your true and honest friendship is payment enough. Stacy looks at Mary and says, once I saw the look on Sam's face, I knew I had to give her this building. Besides, I really had my eye on the building at the top of the hill, a far superior tactical location, which was also owned by my bank. I look at Mary and say, well, Mary, let's head to the building at the top of the hill and see how truly bad it is. Mary again cautions, Stacy, it's a registered toxic waste site. I smile at Mary and agree, yes, I know that. I knew that before my bank bought the loan on it, and I also know there are federal and state funds which will assist in the cleanup. Mary comments, you have certainly done your homework on Leadville. If she only knew the half of it. We leave Sam's pending castle along with the 2 sentries Bill left with us and begin to walk up the hill. Bill meets us before we reach the halfway point and provides information. Stacy, it looks like something nefarious and possibly terrible happened in your building. This gave me great concern. However, I need to correct a misperception. Bill, please provide me the details. However, this is not my building yet since it is still owned by the bank. So if there are any legal issues, then it's really the bank's responsibility. Bill apologizes, sorry, Ms. Summers. I will correct this information with the sheriff because I told him it was your building. It would appear that a number of people used the building for a huge orgy, possibly forced. We found some high-tech military clothing. One set of body armor was incredible. I have never seen anything like it. Mixed in the mess were a huge number of used condoms and empty tubes of lube. There is no reason to continue to the building because the sheriff has declared the whole lower floor a crime scene. I think for a moment and give Bill an order. Please return to the building and fix the misperception with the sheriff and ask him when we can begin work on our new headquarters. Mary wisely suggests, if you tell Jim that the brewery reopening depends on him letting you get started on the building so you can move your offices, it will give him great motivation to speed things up. I praise her for the suggestion. Thank you, Mary, that's an excellent idea. The sheriff and I haven't always gotten along. Mary replies, Sheriff Jim is a good guy, but he takes a little getting used to. I heartily agree. You can say that again. I don't believe what Mary suggests next. Present, Tom, Jack, Masha, Inga, and the children, flying back to Leadville. What the hell? The last thing I remember was getting an adjustment, then a hell of a geisha foot massage from Masha. I wish it would have been from Inga, because I think she had better technique, and now I hear a bunch of terrible singing and giggling. I rise off the stretcher and see Masha and Inga are the 2 making all the noise. I get up and hell, my back feels better than it's felt in years. I walk over to the seats where Inga and Masha are sitting and complain, hell, you 2 could wake the dead. Inga takes one look at me, giggles like crazy, and says, well, we sure woke you up, so I guess you were right. Masha begins to giggle, and I ask the obvious, are you 2 drunk? Inga shushes me and answers, Tom, don't talk so loud, you will wake up Jack. What the hell? Tom and the women are making enough noise to raise the dead. I climb off the stretcher, head over to the three of them, and ask, "What the hell is going on?" Masha looks at Inga. Inga looks at Masha, and they begin to giggle. Tom says, "Hell, Jack, I think they're drunk." I begin to complain, and Inga interrupts. "Jack, please tell me how your back feels." When I think about it, I realize that, hell, it feels fine, and I didn't even notice. I reply, "Inga, it feels great. You are a miracle worker." Inga says, "Well, I taught Masha how to do the same thing, so you should never have those issues again." I reiterate Tom's question, "Ladies, are you drunk?" Masha giggles and answers, "Jack, we only had this much vodka." She holds up an empty bottle. Ivan, who is still holding Veronica, interrupts, "Papa, they have very good time and sing many songs. One funny song about a drunken sailor." Ivan tries to sing, "What you do with a drunken sailor? You kiss him on the lips until he's sober." The ladies giggle, attempt to help Ivan sing it correctly, and I ask, "Are you two done?" Veronica interrupts by beginning to cry, and Ivan announces, "Mama." Veronica make ba. Tom asks, "Does that mean what I think it does?" I answer, "It sure does." "Masha, can you change Veronica's diaper?" Masha tries to get out of the seat, but I can see it's a lost cause because she drunk as a skunk and counter, "Masha, forget it. I will change her diaper. Just hand me the diaper bag." I take Veronica out of Ivan's hands, take the diaper bag that Masha proffers, and move to the gurney. This diaper is really bad. I clean Veronica up the best I can, and Tom complains, "Damn, that stunk up the whole C-130. I decide to tease him, so I say, "Don't worry. When you and Inga have one of your own, you will get used to it." Tom immediately counters, "That's never going to happen." I begin to take Veronica back to Masha, but she and Inga are passed out and leaning on each other. I look at Ivan and ask, "Would you like to hold your baby sister?" Ivan declines the honor. "No, Papa, I want to play with Sharik again." Ivan takes off to find Sharik. I look at Tom, but he holds up his hands and says, "Don't try to give the shit-making machine to me." I sit down, hold Veronica, and decide that it was a good thing Masha blew off some steam with Inga. I softly chuckle because I know Masha well enough to know she is going to have a hell of a hangover when she wakes up. Flashback, Ben and Jack, the trip to hell, at the hospital. I informed the captain of the piece of metal stuck in Jack's butt. The captain glanced at it and ordered, "Hell, pull it out, slap a Band-Aid on his butt, and get both your butts to the roof." I glared at the captain and complained, "Sir, that is not the recommended treatment for this type of injury." The captain challenged my statement. "Sergeant Blaine, since when did you become a medic?" I should have known better, and I did know better, but I couldn't resist, so I said, "Sir, I'm the closest person to a medic you have here. I even have a UOP, Unit 1 pack, a basic medic's kit, to prove it." I should have stopped digging myself in, but I added, "And it was you that didn't deem a medic was necessary on this mission." The captain glared at me while I waited for the rebuff, but Jack interrupted, "Shit, Ben, don't have a cow." The old fart reached back, ignored my previous warning about pulling out the shrapnel, yanked it out of his butt, and, hell's bells, blood began to spray out of the wound. I jumped to Jack's side and scolded him. "Jack, that piece of shrapnel nicked an artery." I began to put pressure on the wound, glared at the captain, and swore, "I hope you're happy. We're not going anywhere until I take care of this bleeder. And if you don't like it, then I suggest you take it up with Colonel Maggie." The captain ordered the remainder of his team to the roof. The butter bar came over beside me and asked, "Sergeant Blaine, can I help?" I looked at him and couldn't quite believe that a butter bar was actually asking, so I decided to test it and said, "Yes, sir. If you could keep pressure on Jack's wound, I will prepare for the field surgery he needs." The butter bar wisely asked, "Sergeant Blaine, are you certain?" I interrupted, "Sorry, sir. But yes, I am certain that Jack needs the bleeder fixed, and we can't afford to wait and see if the captain requests a corpsman." The butter bar said, "I understand, Sergeant, let me assist you." The captain came over and complained, "Lieutenant, what are you doing? Get your butt on the roof to help with the overwatch." I was again impressed because the lieutenant held his ground and answered, "Sir, I am providing support to Sergeant Blaine and Sergeant Reynolds as ordered by your commanding officer, Colonel Maggie. If you have an issue with this order, I suggest you take it up with her when you get back." The captain wisely backed down and ordered, "Lieutenant, that won't be necessary. Continue with your current actions." The captain left. I grinned at the lieutenant and said, "Thanks, I can use the help since I haven't done this procedure before." Jack complained like hell. Flashback, Masha, a rude introduction to America the next day. I answered the phone, which always frightened me when it rang, and heard, "Is this Ms. Reynolds?" I responded, "That would depend on who is calling." The policeman identified himself. "I am the police officer from last night. I am calling to let you know the girls who attacked you on the bus last night have been released on bail." I requested clarification, "Sir, I do not understand. Released on bail?" He replied, "Ms. Reynolds, it means that someone provided the money for them to get out of jail." In exchange for the bail, the teens promise they will show up when a hearing is scheduled. If they fail to attend the hearing, the bond will be revoked, the money will be forfeited, and a warrant for the girl's arrest will be issued. I am telling you in case you need to. We'll prepare for protective matters. I hoped for a negative response and asked, "Sir, would the girls know where I live?" I received additional bad news when he answered, "Sorry, Ms. Reynolds. But the lawyer who secured their release had that information, and I am certain he gave it to them." He paused and offered, "I could send a car to your house." I said, "Sir, that will not be necessary. I could not trust them to protect me, therefore I will protect myself." The policeman cautioned, "Ms. Reynolds, just remember they have to present imminent danger. I do not want you to get into trouble." I asked for clarification. Would imminent danger be any attempt to forcefully enter my domicile? The policeman concurred. "Yes, Ms. Reynolds, that is correct. But do make sure they are trying to enter your house." I thanked him. "Officer, I appreciate your call. Should I call you to retrieve the corpses in the aftermath of their attempt to invade my domicile?" The officer said, "No, ma'am. If they show up, call 911 first." He hung up the phone, then I went to Jack's gun safe and prepared for my own war. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, the next day. I couldn't frickin' believe it. This entire morning was terrible. First, I was rousted out of a great dream, naturally about Ben. Then almost forced downstairs by Daniela before I could comfortably take care of my normal morning duties. Then Daddy once again called me a perfect frackin' princess, and Daniela even came to Daddy's defense. Now I had to go with Daddy to see the frackin' shrink and only had 10 minutes to shower and dress. I made a decision. If I was going to be called a perfect frackin' princess, then I was going to act like a perfect frackin' princess. Daddy and everyone else could just wait for me. I was enjoying a long hot shower until Daddy banged on the door to my bathroom and ordered, "Jennifer, we need to leave or we will be late." I sarcastically yelled back, "Sorry, Daddy, but we're going to be late. This perfect princess isn't close to being ready to leave yet. I need at least another 30 minutes. Daddy threatened, "Young lady, get your butt out here now, or I will leave you home." I laughed and said, "So leave me home. I don't really mind." Daddy then started to whine, "Jennifer, don't be unreasonable." I interrupted. "Well, you wanted a perfect frackin' princess. Now you have one, so stop complaining." Daddy began with another threat, but I was tired of his bullying. After all, I wasn't one of his Marines that he could boss around. So I began to sing as loud as I could. Looking back on things, that probably wasn't the wisest thing to do because... Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. We almost made it to the psychologist's office, started to feel we were home free, and then we heard the orderlies behind us. "Run for your lives," the devil cat escaped. They ran past us. I looked at the psychologist. He squeezed my hand and ordered, "Alexei, run and save yourself. I will detain Chow Mein." I could not let the psychologist face Chow Mein alone, especially since I was the one who precipitated her insane behavior. Plus, he had been more like a father to me than my real parents. So I stopped and said, "Sir, I will not run from Chow Mein. I will stay here with you and face her." He was going to complain, and then it was too late. There was a blood-curdling yowl, and Chow Mein approached us. She did not charge us, but instead she stalked us like she was stalking a mouse. I suddenly realized I possessed the perfect tool for our defense. I had the flashlight in my pocket. I quickly pulled it from my pocket, turned it on, and shined the beam on the wall. Chow Mein yowled and chased the beam up the wall with an acrobatic jump. The psychologist praised my action. "Good thinking, Alexei. We just might survive Chow Mein." I slowly moved the beam to the adjacent wall, and of course, Chow Mein chased it up that wall. The psychologist put his hand on my shoulder and ordered, "Keep her busy, Alexei, and I will help you walk backwards toward my office." We slowly worked our way toward the office, and were doing fine until the batteries started to die in my flashlight. I knew I needed to think of something fast. We walked by a fire suppression station. I handed the light to the psychologist and said, "Keep Chow Mein busy, sir. I have an idea." I opened the cabinet, removed the fire extinguisher, pulled the safety pin on it, pointed it at Chow Mein, and began to spray her with the gas. Chow Mein yowled like crazy, charged toward me, but I kept spraying her with the gas. I was sure in her denuded state, the gas had to be freezing her, but she didn't stop and kept coming. I finally rammed the nozzle of the fire extinguisher over her head, pressed her down to the floor, and kept spraying her with the gas. She fought like crazy, finally got away, turned tail, and ran down the hallway. The psychologist grabbed my hand, and we ran like crazy to his office. Once there, he slammed the door and said, "Good job, Alexei. Finally, we are safe." However, he spoke too quickly. Flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. We had underestimated Kostia. He was not on the Hind helicopter and taunted us through the destroyed Hind helicopter's radio device. The son of Lucifer then sent a rocket toward our previous location. We barely translocated and avoided being decimated. I bent to catch my breath, and Ira said, Mira, we must locomotivate from this area haste of post. Kostia will not be appeased with one rocket. I straightened and agreed. Yes, Ira, our actions have seriously wounded Kostia's pride, and he will not obtain ataraxis until we are terminated. Ira came up with a marvelous plan. There was only one way in which to escape Kostia's wrath. That was for him to assume we had been terminated. I suggested to my sister Mira, we need to delude Kostia by making him believe we have been terminated. Mira smiled and said, Yes, Ira, that is an excellent idea, but how are we to implement it? I grinned at Mira and informed her, Mira, we will acquire 2 of the terminated soldiers, perform some creative surgery on them to remove their male reproductive parts, place our accoutrements on them, and entice Kostia to flambe or rocket the corpses. Mira praised my idea. Ira, once again your plan might have uncooked our gooses. We quickly moved back to the area with the previously terminated soldiers, found 2 who approximated our sizes, and began the odious surgical duties. With the emasculation of the terminated adversaries completed, it was time to agitate Kostia again. We dragged the corpses back to the location of the prior rocket bombardment, placed them adjacent to the decimated helicopter, and I taunted, Kostia, your rocket's red glare did not terminate us. Mira added an excellent insult. Kostia, I release odoriferous alimentary canal flatulence in the direction of your corporeal self. Kostia voice reverberated over the radio. My girls, I assumed the rocket terminated you. Perhaps this one will. I provided one more taunt. Kostia, you could not strike your derriere with both of your digital extremities in a planned assault. We await your misfired missile at your terminated helicopter. I motioned to Mira, and we both vacated the area. We remotely observed as Kostia's rocket decimated the helicopter and flambéed our corpse. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. I knew I needed to find the female soldiers my target had deployed to kill me. So I carefully crawled through the jungle, led only by the faint smell of their perfume. Even with my high-tech thermal goggles, I couldn't see any tracks left by the women. I reached forward with my hand and touched something. Oh shit. It was a foot. The woman jumped up, began screaming, and then something terrible happened. Present, Bernie and Liz, back in Leadville. Liz really doesn't understand my extreme hatred of living in the tunnels. It makes me feel like some sort of rat or mole. When she mentions that we might move back in to support Jens, I glare at Liz and state, Liz, if you move back into the tunnels, it will be without me. I'm staying right here in this hotel room until we buy a house. Liz whines, but Bernie, Jens is my best friend and needs. Without a lot of thought, I interrupt her. And what the hell am I? Chopped liver? Liz, it's time you make a decision, to support Jennifer or me. I wait for the answer. Bernie has really upset me with his craziness about not living in the tunnels. He delivers an ultimatum to me, so I glare at him and answer, Bernie, you know I love you. Hell, you're the father of our child. But you of all people should know, I won't tolerate an ultimatum. I am moving out of the hotel now, and I hope to hell you have a wonderful life without me or our child. Bernie tries to add some more. Liz, don't be. I interrupt. Bernie, I am not being the unreasonable person right now. It is you. Perhaps if you have some time on your own to think about it, you will see that I'm right. I pick up the phone, call the front desk, and ask them to come up and get my bags. I hang up and call my favorite taxi driver, tell him it's an emergency, and ask him to pick me up at the hotel. Bernie comes over to me, tries to hug me, but I push him away and threaten, Bernie, do not ever touch me again, or I will have you arrested for assault. Bernie starts to justify his actions, but thank God the front desk person and the taxi driver show up before he can get up a full head of steam. The taxi driver asks, Ma'am, you need a taxi? I smile and say, Yes, I certainly do. I need you to take me back to the Blaine cabin. He asks an expected question, and your husband-to-be? I emphatically declare, he's sure as hell not coming with me. I point to my luggage and ask, Do you mind taking this downstairs for me? The front desk worker asks another expected question, Ms. Morgan, do you still wish to purchase the wedding dress? I think for a moment, come up with an evil idea, and answer, I certainly would. I see hope in Bernie's eyes until I dash it. I would like you to leave it on the mannequin, bring it into this room, and put it in the corner as a reminder of what should and could have been. With that, I leave the room with the front desk worker and the taxi driver. My phone rings several times. I look at it. It's Bernie, and I'm sure as hell not answering his phone calls. Once we're in the taxi, the driver begins, Ms. You and your husband-to-be seemed. I interrupt, Son, you have been such a help to me. However, right now is not the time for you to play amateur psychologist with me. Bernie delivered an ultimatum to me, which I could not tolerate. What the hell is it about men that they think they own their women? The taxi driver slinks down in his seat at my admonition, and thank God, keeps his mouth shut. We arrive at the cabin, and I ask, Please drive to the garage, and would it be possible for you to help me with my suitcase? He replies, of course, MS. We walk up to the door leading into the tunnels. I enter my code, and the door opens. The taxi driver's eyes grow big when he sees the tunnel complex. Gretchen meets us at the door, notices the taxi driver carrying my suitcase, and asks, Liz, I thought you were staying in town. I wave my hand and answer, Gretchen, it's a long story which I don't want to go into right now. Please tell me Mabel is here and has some food. Gretchen interrupts. Of course she is here, and doesn't she always have food? I look at the taxi driver and ask, have you eaten dinner tonight? He answers, I was in the middle of my meal when you called me, and I didn't get a chance to finish. I apologize and offer, sorry about interrupting your meal, but I'm sure Mabel, our cook, has enough food for both of us. Gretchen interjects, Liz, she probably has enough food for most of Leadville. We move through the tunnels while the taxi driver remarks, I've never seen anything like this. This is, well, incredible. We stop by my room, drop off my suitcase, head into the kitchen. Mabel sees me, runs over, gives me a big hug, and says, Liz, you look wonderful. When are you due? I shake my head and reply, Mabel, I won't know until I see a doctor. We're starving. Do you have anything to eat? Mabel answers, sit at the table, and I will bring you to a feast. We do as commanded. My phone rings again, and of course it's Bernie. I don't answer the call because Mabel brings out an incredible amount of food, and since I'm eating for two, as I yet again get Liz's voicemail, my frustration builds some more. When I again mentally replay the whole scene from the beginning, it suddenly occurs to me that Liz's original plan to drop everything and move into the tunnels was an ultimatum on her part. Without asking for my thoughts, she just charged ahead and committed me to an action that I just couldn't take. For God's sake, we are supposed to be partners in starting a family. Now fully depressed, I just laid back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Present, Glenn, hunting for Miranda. I had decided to find Miranda and make her pay for the damage she created with my daughter. However, from the briefings I had read on Miranda and her sister Irina, I knew it was suicide to attempt retribution on the two of them by myself. So I returned to the sheriff's office to bring Hammer with me. Hammer rudely asks me, what in teach bloody heel day you want? When I explain to him what Miranda did, Hammer gives me a funny look, laughs like crazy and says, Sheriff, tak me back te seal, ne gani any war why thestaber. Especially ne on a suicide mission. I begin to argue, Hammer, don't be a pain and teach crease. On ye. Hammer reiterates, Sheriff, I woods rather die in your jail than gang any war why thestaber. The sheriff shrugs his shoulders and says, sorry Glenn, if Hammer doesn't want out of the jail, I can't force him to leave. He comes back and asks, so Glenn, what are your plans now that they don't include Hammer? I respond, I am still heading at my daughter's cabin to see if I can fin teach Miranda here. The sheriff corrects, don't you mean Ben's cabin? I don't suppose you would like some company, would you? He pauses then continues, hell Glenn, I almost forgot about it. Could you take a look at some items we found in one of the abandoned building and give me your thoughts about their origin? I reply, only help would be greatly appreciated. He takes me into a back office, and there on the table is paramilitary clothing. There is one very interesting set of body armor. I pick it up, look at it, and exclaim, nay complete sure, but Thess looks lockteach, body armor Miranda's sister Irina was wearing when she came in to release teach other toys. I pick up the other body armor, smell it, and the sheriff asks, Glenn, what the hell are you doing? I explain, teach, younger pregnant lassie hud own a distinctive perfume. However, it's nay own Thess body armor. I pick up the other set of body armor and excitedly remark, Thess is it? Thess is body armor. Where did you fin it? The sheriff shakes his head and says, I was concerned you would say that. I hate to tell you this, Glenn, but I'm afraid someone has already beaten you to finding Miranda and Irina. All this was found at a crime scene. I wonder, don't tell me they killed Samine and abandoned their clothing. The sheriff shocks me when he says, I don't think that's what happened. From the crime scene, it looked like someone captured all of them and assaulted them multiple times. I'm waiting for CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, to come and help me with the scene. I was thinking it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people than the sheriff reminds me. Glenn, you're still a deputy, and I could use some help on this. I begrudgingly agree. Ye cannot don't want te day Thess, but since you re a mucker I been, I will help ye. Wit you RTH plans. He tells me, then we head off together to the scene of the crime. When I arrive and witness what evidently happened, I decide that no one should have that happen to them. Not even the Miranda bitch. Present, Stacy and Samantha, in town. Mary looks at me and I can't believe it when she suggests, you know Stacy, you should consider running for Leadville City Council. I had never considered that, so I ask, Mary, please tell me what's involved if I was on the city council? Mary answers, you need to attend the monthly council meetings is all. I think about it some and say, Mary, while that is a great idea, I think I need to decline. I can't be sure I will be here for the meetings. Mary complains slightly. Well, I was just thinking with you being the largest employer in Leadville, you might want to say in the management of the city. I would hate to see the city get you upset and force you to leave. I smile at Mary and answer, I don't see that happening. Besides, I have found it better to support the local politicians so they don't do things that upset me. I remember something and ask, what can you tell me about the ski area to the north of town? Mary provides the basics. Oh, you mean Ski Cooper? It was used during World War II to train the 10th Mountain Division. I stop her and say, Mary, I know the history of it. I was wondering how profitable it is and if it might be for sale. Mary was taken aback and replies, Well, Stacy, I'm not sure. Would you like me to look into it? I touch Mary's hand and say, Please, but make sure your inquiries are very discreet. Mary gives me an assurance that no one will know. I, of course, will check that promise with Sally later. Samantha pulls me to the side and says, Wow, Stacy might buy the ski area. I love to ski and that would be great. However, there's something I want to talk to Stacy about. So I pull her to the side and ask, Stacy, I was just thinking, it might be a nice gesture for you to put in free municipal Wi-Fi. Stacy smiles at me and asks, Sam, what made you think of that idea? I reply, Mary not using a tablet, even though it would be very helpful. Stacy surprises me when she says, Okay, Sam, why don't you look into this for me? Figure out the coverage area you feel is needed, then calculate the cost of installation and the monthly maintenance fee. Stacy thinks for a moment more and adds, While you're at it, why don't you figure out the cost to provide the high school students with a new Chromebook computer? I sputter, Stack. Stacy, I'm not sure I would know where or how to start. Stacy laughs and says, Don't worry, I'm not going to leave you high and dry. Bill will help you with this and also with the remodeling of your castle. I ask another question, why did you want to use a Chromebook computer? Stacy smiles and answers, I have read some reports on school districts that have provided Android, Apple, and Windows devices where the students invariably hack those systems. Many districts have switched to Chromebooks because the management and collaboration tools are great and the cost is minimal. Plus, they are harder to hack than the traditional operating systems. Bill has more information on this if you're interested. Mary is waving and Stacy says, It looks like Mary wants to talk to us. We move back over to Mary just as Bill walks in and says, Miss Summers, the sheriff and Glenn are inspecting the crime scene. Do you care to see it for yourself? Stacy looks at Bill and asks, How bad is it? Bill pulls Stacy and me to the side and suggests, Miss Summers, because of incidents in your past, I would recommend that you do not visit the crime scene. He looks at me and further suggests, However, I do feel that Samantha should record the scene before it is further contaminated. I ask, What do you mean? Bill explains, Well, the sheriff is waiting for the CBI to investigate the scene, but he has already taken the body armor away from the scene, and now with Glenn there the scene is going to be further destroyed. I pull out my mobile phone and call the cameramen. They rush up the hill with the equipment. Stacy says, Sam, I'm heading back to the brewery since I'm still a few hours short on sleep. Please document the crime scene as much as the sheriff will let you. Bill, please make sure the sheriff doesn't give Sam any problems. I hug Stacy and say, Thanks again for everything. We reach the building at the top of the hill right as a vehicle arrives from the CBI. Bill says, Let me talk with these agents first. Bill walks up, shakes their hands, and they begin to talk. He gestures toward me a couple of times, then waves me over. We come beside Bill, and he says, Gentlemen, this is Samantha Stevens from the Truth Network. Sam, they have given you permission to record the crime scene if you will provide them with a copy of the video. One of the CBI agents also says, Ms. Stevens, we would also like to ask you to take certain shots for us, and, well, I hate to ask this. He pauses, so I say, Well, go ahead and say what you want. He blushes and says, Well, it would be great if we could get a picture together. I giggle and say, No problem with that. Now shall we begin? We walk into the building. The sheriff comes over to the CBI agents and they announce, Sheriff, please leave the scene before it's contaminated even more by your amateur tactics. We begin to record the scene and the sheriff answers, Sorry about that, but we do have some information that you might find useful. Then the sheriff sees me and remarks, What is she doing here? One of the agents answers, Ms. Stevens is going to record the scene for us. Now what information do you have for us? The sheriff points at Glenn Donaldson to indicate they are together and says, We're quite sure that Miranda and Irina Sedankina were two of the captives that were tortured here. Glenn comes over and says, I recognized the body armor Irina was wearing when she broke te captai AITA sheriff's jail. The CBI agent asks the sheriff, You let some of the captives that were held here escape from your jail? The sheriff tries to minimize his responsibility. I wasn't at the jail when it happened, and they put my deputy in the hospital. The agent continues, Don't you think that should have been reported to the CBI? The sheriff becomes defensive. Hell no. The last thing I need is you guys messing up my county. The agent counters, You're lucky we don't charge you for this negligence. Now leave this crime scene and let us do our work. We will stop by your office when we're complete to examine the items removed from the crime scene. The sheriff leaves, and the agents have me begin to video the scene while they collect samples. I can't believe how gross it is. I haven't seen this many condoms and empty containers of lube in my whole life. Present, Jack, Tom, Masha, Inga, and the children, flying back to Leadville. Tom finally shows back up and says, I checked with the pilot, and we should be back in Leadville soon. You think we should wake up the drunks? I figure what Tom doesn't know is his problem and answer, yeah, that's a great idea. I watch as he heads over to Masha and Inga. When he gets close to them, he orders, time for you two drunks wake up. He doesn't get a response, so he reaches over and begins to shake Inga and gets the surprise of his life. I can't get these two drunks to wake up by talking to them, so I decide I need to shake them a little. I start shaking Inga, and I can't believe it. Not only does she wake up, she grabs my arm in an arm bar and practically breaks it. I yell, Inga, hell's bells. What the hell are you doing? Inga yells back, Tom, you should know better by now than to wake me like that. Jack begins to laugh like crazy, so I look at the old fart and figure he planned this somehow. Inga finally lets me go. I rub my arm and threaten, the next time you do that to me. Inga laughs and interrupts, Tom, don't embarrass yourself. We both know that I could take you any day of the week. Jack adds an insult to the process. Hell, I'd pay to see that. Masha finally wakes up and inquires, what are we paying to watch? Jack yells, Inga is going to kick Tom's butt. Masha yawns, stretches, and says, from what I've seen, I believe Inga wouldn't even work up a sweat. Tom begins to mutter under his breath and moves toward the front of the plane. Masha holds her head and complains, oh, I don't feel well. Inga taunts, I thought you Russians could hold your alcohol better. Masha answers, I could when I was younger, but not anymore. I suggest, Masha, you might want to go to the toilet, splash some water on your face, and then drink some of the bottled water. Masha stumbles to the bathroom to take care of her hangover. Flashback, Jack and Ben, the trip to hell, at the hospital. I sure as hell didn't like that Ben told the butter bar that he had never done this procedure, so I complained, Ben, what the hell are you planning to do? Ben replied, Jack, I need to find the bleeder in your butt and suture the scumsucker. I continued the complaints. What the hell am I, your guinea pig? Ben said, hell no. I've done this before on cadavers, just never on a live human. I began to turn to object, but the butter bar ordered, Sergeant Reynolds, you will stay still, or I will inform Colonel Maggie of your insubordination. Ben said, Jack was being his usual pain in the butt self. Thank God the butter bar gave him shit, so I didn't need to. I prepared a morphine injection and some lidocaine and said, Jack, after this you shouldn't feel a thing. I nailed his leg with the morphine and injected the lidocaine in his butt adjacent to the wound from the shrapnel. Jack jumped and swore, I thought you said this wasn't going to hurt. I laughed and said, so I lied. Give it a few minutes. Jack continued, perhaps you should have. He lapsed into unconsciousness. I looked at the butter bar and asked, are you ready? He asked, what can I do? I answered, first we need to clean the hell out of our hands. I pulled a bottle of vodka out of the UOP, opened the lid, poured some on my hands, and motioned to the butter bar to hold out his hands. As he did, I poured some over his hands and he asked, why are you using vodka? I took a big swig and answered, because it works externally and internally. Now let's glove up. I prepared the surgical tray, gloved up, and took over holding the bandage. The butter bar gloved up and I said, okay, when we take the bandage off, he's going to bleed like hell. I need to reach into the wound and try to feel for the bleeder. I nodded at the butter bar. He pulled off the bandage and the blood shot out of Jack's butt. I reached into the wound from the shrapnel and began to feel for the bleeder. I must have done something right because the blood stopped spraying. I looked at the butter bar and said, you need to put your hand behind mine and follow your fingers down to my index finger. It's the one that's covering the bleeder. I will slip my hand out of the way and prepare the suture. For a green butter bar, he surprised me and followed directions to AT. Once I was sure his index finger was on the bleeder, I slipped my hand out of the wound in Jack's butt and prepared the suture tray. I looked at the butter bar and ordered, okay, I'm ready. Once I start the suture, you need to try to mop up the blood so I can see and feel what I'm doing. But be careful that I don't nick you with the needle. He pulled his hands away. I reached in, found the bleeder, and began the suture while the butter bar did a hell of a job controlling the bleeding. 1, 2, 3 sutures, and the bleeding slowed up. I looked at the butter bar and said, okay, find the flashlight in the UOP and let's take a look at things. He quickly found the flashlight. I was glad because I had forgotten to pull it out, flipped it on, and we examined the wound in Jack's butt. I noticed something and pointed it out. It looks like I need to add one more suture then I am done. The butter bar asked, Sergeant Blaine, I am amazed. Where did you learn how to do this? I smiled at him, added the last suture, and said, Jack and I were on so many LRPs that I figured we needed someone with some medical skills. I started studying, enjoyed it, and continued. The butterbar asked, "What's next?" I said, "We give Jack a few doses of antibiotic and then pack the wound with dressing." He wisely asked, "So you're not going to close it?" I smiled and said, "Nope, they would have to cut it open again at the base. By the way, I didn't tell you, but you're my new spotter because Jack is headed back to the base to have this checked out." The butterbar asked, "How do you expect the captain to approve that?" I gave him my shit-eating grin and said, "That's your problem." And then I motioned toward the roof. He left to find the captain and swore on his way. Flashback, Masha, a short but sweet. I began to check our house and realized, to my chagrin, it was not very secure and was almost impossible to secure in a timely manner. Jack and Ben had told me this was a rancher-style house with everything on one level, but I never considered how impossible it made it to defend. My first concern was Linda, as she needed to stay safe even at the expense of my life. I made the decision to barricade both of us in the extra bedroom, which contained Jack's gun safe and ammunition. I quickly put a mattress against the window, moved Linda into the room in her car seat, opened Jack's safe, and withdrew more guns and ammunition than any sane person should need. I set Linda with her car seat in the open safe door, closed it slightly, so she would be protected from any gunfire. Then I decided to do one more thing. I pushed the desk in the room against the door. Then I called Louise at the store and told her what was happening. Louise offered, "Masha, I can come right over to the house and pick up Linda." I replied, "Louise, I do not feel there is enough time for you to arrive before the hooligan girls get here. I promise you as your adopted sister and Linda's adopted aunt that they will not injure her." Louise suggests, "Perhaps we should call the police?" I thought about it a moment, but because of my Russian distrust of the police dismissed it and said, "Louise, because they are not here yet, calling the police would be an exercise in futility." Then Louise suggested something I had not considered. "What if you called the good policeman who brought you to the store?" That was a great idea. However, the problem was their business card was in my purse, which was in the kitchen. I said, "Louise." Then the phone died in the middle of our conversation. I pushed the button on the phone many times, but never received the dial tone. I knew that the hooligan girls had arrived. Flashback, Jennifer and Glenn, the next day. I heard the door to my bathroom open and started to complain, "I don't know whose." Then I screamed like crazy because someone tossed cold water over the top of the shower. I yelled, "Someone is going to get their rear kicked." I heard Daniela order, "Ms. Jennifer, you will not talk to me or your father that way. Now exit the shower, or I will throw more cold water on you." At least it was Daniela and not Daddy. I would have been so embarrassed if Daddy had come into my bathroom. I flung open the shower door, glared at Daniela, and complained, "If you ever." Daniela threw the rest of the bucket of cold water she was holding on me. I screamed again. Daniela laughed and stated, "Miss Jennifer, I have more cold water to calm that hot temper of yours. Now get out of the shower and get dressed. You are making your father late." She held out my towel for me. I glared at her, took it, and began to dry myself. She really made me angry when she added, "Miss Jennifer, I picked out a nice dress for you to wear. Now hurry up." I glared at her and threatened, "Daniela, some way I will get even for this outrage. And I will not wear a dress today." Daniela waved her hands in a dismissive manner and said, "Then I guess you won't wear anything because all your other clothes are dirty." I stutter, "Wah? What do you mean all my other clothes are dirty?" Daniela replied, "Miss Jennifer, you are a smart girl and know what dirty clothes are. I was shocked at the totally filthy condition of your clothes. Your mother must not have known how to do laundry properly. So all your clothes are being washed, other than your dresses which look to be new." I continue in amazement, All my other clothes are being washed?" Daniela began to help me dry my hair, which was sort of nice, and replied, "Yes, they are all being washed and will probably be finished tomorrow. So you will wear a nice new dress today." I stuck my tongue out, blew a raspberry at Daniela, and said, "No dress is nice." Daniela made a clucking noise and countered, "Ms. Jennifer, that is where you are wrong. One day when you get married, you will wear a wedding dress, and you and your future husband will love it." She made me think of my dreams. I sigh, and as a mistake said, "Yes, Ben will love my wedding dress." Daniela stopped and queried, "Ben? Who is this Senor Ben, and how do you know you will marry him?" I realized my mistake and replied, "Oh, he is no one. Forget I said anything." Of course, Daniela chose the dress I hated the most. She rushed me into the stupid frackin' dress and tried to make me wear some stupid dress shoes, however they didn't fit me. I laughed and countered, "Since my feet have grown, only my boots or tennis shoes fit me." I can see the shocked look on Daniela's face, grin and announce, "So I will wear my boots." Daniela complained, "Ms. Jennifer." I interrupted, "Sorry, Daniela, but you said Daddy is waiting." I put on my boots, more out of rebellion than anything else, and dashed downstairs. Daddy saw me, smiled at me, and I stopped him before he started. Daddy, don't you dare say a single word. Daddy smiled and said, I was just going to comment on your choice of footwear. I grinned and replied, yeah, none of my other shoes fit anymore. Daddy laughed and said, I suppose I need to teach you how to shine those boots the marine way. I scuffed the boots together more and teased, not really. I think I will embrace the goth look. Daddy complained, like hell my daughter is going to look like some half-dead vampire. I laughed and corrected, Daddy, vampires are the undead. So how could they be half-dead? I continued just to score some more points. Yeah, I can see myself with black fingernail polish, black lipstick, and hot pink hair. Daddy erupted, no daughter of mine is going to look like that. I really had him going, but I made a mistake and giggled. So I said, gotcha, Daddy. Just so you know, the next time you send Daniela into my bathroom, I will embrace the goth look. Daddy muttered under his breath, it felt good to have won this one. Flashback, Alexei, at the laboratory. The psychologist felt we would be safe, locked in his office until we heard Chow Main's yowl coming from the air duct. I looked at the psychologist and hopefully expressed, Sir, do you think that Chow Mein is just sitting by the vent? We heard some banging, and the psychologist answered, No, Alexei. I fear that Chow Mein has discovered a flaw in our plans. She has accessed the heating ducts, and if the grill doesn't keep her out, she will soon gain access to my office. Someone yelled, How did you get in here? Get the hell away from me, you devil cat. Followed by angry yowling and obvious fight noises. I was shocked and said, that was Father. Chow Mein is attacking him. I did not want Father to be injured further by Chow Mein, so I ran to the grill, banged on it, and yelled, Chow Mein, I am here. The psychologist scolded me, I think mostly from fear. Alexei, do not call her here. I continued to bang on the grill because I had a plan. I looked at the psychologist and asked, Do you still have a big syringe and many narcotics in your office? He answered, Of course I do, Alexei, why do you ask? I told the psychologist my plan, fill up your biggest syringe with that medicine you give to the really crazy patients. The psychologist interrupted. Do you mean Thorazine? I continued, Yes, that is the one. Put a very long needle on it and hand it to me. He asked, Alexei, what are you going to do? I finished the plan. I will lure Chow Mein here. When she comes to the grill, I will stick her with the needle and inject her with all the Thorazine. The psychologist cautioned, Alexei, that much Thorazine will probably kill Chow Mein. The more I had thought about the injuries Chow Mein inflicted upon my parents and how it was my fault because of the experiments I performed upon her, the worse I felt. I needed to make some recompense for my actions. Killing Chow Mein would be that recompense. I hated the cat for stealing all of Mother's love, so ridding the world of the Frankenstein monster she had become was a small price for the redemption I hoped to gain. Of course I had a soul, however it did not concern any action against Chow Mein. She had become the devil cat and needed to die, and I was to be the instrument of her destruction. I said, Yes, it will probably kill Chow Mein, but she has harmed too many people to be able to coexist with us. I continued to beat upon the grill and called, Chow Mein, you stupid, idiotic devil cat. I am here. The psychologist brought me the syringe while I took it in my right hand and continued to taunt Chow Mein, you stupid, fecal-eating, foul feline. I am here waiting for you. You know you hate me as much as I hate you. I have a special treat for you. It was hard to tell if the yowls grew closer, and then there was the devil cat. She sat down about a half a meter away from the grill, stared at me, and yowled. I called, Chow Mein, come closer. I have a special treat for you. She hissed, yowled, and purred, but would not come closer. I turned, looked at the psychologist, and then flashback, Mira and Ira, back in Kazakhstan. I smiled, looked at Ira, and remarked, Your plan is completed. Now we need to vacate the area. Ira replied, Yes, vacate with haste of post. We ran for our lives and knew that Kostia would eventually discover our ruse. But we hoped when he did we would be gone long. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. When I actually touched the foot of one of the women, she jumped up, began to scream, and then the jungle exploded in a brilliant flash of light and cacophony of noise. Present, Liz, in the tunnels. After my huge fight with Bernie, I came back to the tunnels, and Mabel served the taxi driver and me a huge amount of food. I was eating for two, so I devoured most of it. But I did keep my senses about me since I didn't want to get fat. The taxi driver comments, Wow, I could get used to eating like this. I smile and respond, Mabel loves to cook and is excellent at her job. Mabel comes over, clears our plates, and says, You too were hungry. Liz, I've never seen you eat that much food. I smile and answer, I guess you might be the only one that doesn't know. I'm eating for two. Mabel grins and says, You're wrong about that. Gretchen told everyone the good news. But where's Bernie so I can congratulate him? I frown at Mabel and complain, Men, what is it about them that they think they own you? Mabel's face displays shock while she continues, "Don't tell me. You two had a little lover's spat." I correct, spat hell. Bernie gave me an ultimatum, so I gave him one right back and backed mine up with actions. The taxi driver appears to be uncomfortable as hell and interrupts. "Ms. Mabel, is it? I wanted to say that was some of the best food I have ever eaten." Mabel smiles at him and says, "Why thank you, son, but I didn't get your name." This makes me feel bad because he's been driving me all over hell and back and I don't know his name. I apologize. I need to apologize to you because I never asked your name. He laughs and says, "Ms. Morgan, it's right on the business card, but I guess you missed it. My name is Rick." Mabel saves me by offering, "Well, Rick, I want you to know if you're ever in the area, feel free to stop in for a meal." Rick almost embarrasses himself when he gratefully says, "Wow, are you certain of that?" Mabel says, "Of course. I love cooking, and it's even better when it's appreciated." Rick offers, "Well, Mabel, if you ever need a ride anywhere, feel free to call me." With a flourish, he hands her one of his business cards. Mabel says, "I sure will, since I need to make regular trips into town or the airport to pick up groceries." Gretchen comes into the dining room and asks, "Liz, are you ready for the meeting?" Mabel interrupts, "Gretchen, can you give Rick access to the tunnels?" Gretchen logically asks, "Why does he need access to the tunnels?" Mabel says, "Because he's going to be driving me to the market and to the airport to pick up the groceries, so no one else will be bothered anymore. Plus, he has a standing invitation for me to eat here anytime he wants." Gretchen smiles and says, "I sure will. That's great news for all of us." Mabel interjects, "You see, Rick, no one likes driving me to those places, so you are a godsend." Gretchen says, "That's for sure. Liz, why don't you give me about 10 minutes to set Rick up in the system and give him a procedure manual, then meet me in the conference room." Gretchen and Rick leave as Mabel says, "Well, I need to take care of some things." And I quickly found myself alone in the room. I wander back to my room and cry about my fight with Bernie. Things were going so well with us. Why did he have to be so stupid? I pull myself together, wash my face, and head to the conference room. Present, Glenn, hunting for Miranda. We leave the crime scene to the CBI. The instant we step outside, the sheriff explodes. Those self-righteous pricks. We give them a hell of a lead, and they throw crap back in our faces. I attempt to calm the sheriff. "Don't gie your feathers in a ruffle. You did mess up, teach a crime scene some." The sheriff counters, "Like hell I did. You don't know shit about crime scene investigation." I decide it's wiser to not infuriate him further, so I change the subject. "I was wondering if ye could see me a ride at my daughter's cabin." The sheriff again corrects me. "Glenn, you need to get it through your head. It's still Ben's cabin. Come on, let's go." After a few minutes of travel, I begin a conversation. "How do you know my son-in-law, Ben?" The sheriff glances at me and asks, "Glenn, what the hell happened? You're talking normal all of a sudden?" I laugh and answer, "Jim, my family was from Scotland, and when I'm around Hammer for any length of time, I begin to pick up his idiosyncrasies." Jim makes a joke. I would say they are more idiot-syncrasies. We both get a good laugh out of it. Then Jim begins, "Glenn, Ben and I were best friends in high school. Hell, we were the only friends either of us had. Ben had a real son of a bitch for a father who beat the shit out of Ben all the time. Sometimes it was so bad Ben had to miss school. I was so happy when he married Jennifer. If anyone deserved a break in life, he sure as hell did. And now, well shit, I guess it wasn't meant to be." His last few words made me feel even worse, so I reply, "Jim, you're right. Ben deserves a better life, and if you're willing, then I say we do everything we can to fix the situation." Jim looks over at me, smiles, and says, "Glenn, I would say we have our work cut out for us. No one in the world is going to find Ben if he doesn't want to be found. I remember how Destiny helped us at the wedding and countered, 'Jim, there is one person that I know of that can always find Ben. The problem is I'm not sure how to contact her.'" Jim laughs and replies, "So then I was right in the first place. We have no way to find Ben." We arrive at the cabin and Jim asks, "I know there are tunnels under the cabin. Do you know how to get into them?" We can't go through the house because it's still a crime scene and I don't want another run-in with the CBI. I scan the area and remark, "I know that Jennifer wouldn't have just one entrance to the tunnels. What's that building on the hill?" Jim replies, "That's the garage." I request, "Well, it's worth a try." Jim drives up to the garage, but we no sooner get inside than the lights come on and 3 people are pointing weapons at us. One of them yells, "State your business or leave." Jim is reaching for his shotgun, but I advise caution. "Jim, that's not the thing to do right now. Let me handle this." I open the door on his truck, get out with my hands raised, and announce, "I'm Glenn Donaldson, Jennifer's father." One of the guards answers, "Please stand in one place while we verify your identity." I wait for a couple minutes, and the security guard says, "Welcome, Mr. Donaldson. Sorry for the delay." I wave to Jim. He waves back and leaves. I am escorted into the tunnels, and it's amazing. Even though I feel I know the answer, I still ask, "Is Miranda Sedankina or her sister here?" The security guard replies, the four of them are missing and we have no idea where they are. Present, Samantha, crime scene investigation. We finished recording the crime scene for the CBI, and they both had quite a few pictures taken with me. I even had some publicity shots with me, which I gladly autographed with a personalized message to both of them. It was a good thing that Stacy wasn't here to see this. The whole place was so gross, and I felt filthy dirty just from recording the crime scene. The worst was when the agents discovered some of the condoms had fecal matter on them, which they remarked was typical with all the empty bottles of lube. We head down the hill toward the current offices, and John remarks, I sure as hell hope I don't ever have to do that again. I practically puked a few times. I agree. I had heard things like this happen, but I never thought we would ever see anything like this. I'm not even sure what to do with the video we shot. John makes an excellent suggestion. Well, Samantha, that's not for you to decide. That's Liz's problem. I smile at him and answer, you're right. This is Liz's problem. I will call her right after I take a very hot, very long shower. We reach the offices. I check on Stacy and she was sleeping, so I strip off my clothes, throw them away. I know I will never get the smell and filth from them, and begin my shower. Present, Masha, Jack, Inga, and the children, flying back to Leadville. On my head, it feels like there is a whole drum corps performing inside my head. Why? Oh, why did I let Inga talk me into drinking all of Veronica's vodka? The plane hits a downdraft, drops like a rock, and I barely make it to the toilet in time. I begin to retch into the toilet. Then Jack adds to my pain by banging on the door and yelling, Masha, are you okay? I compound things further when I yell, Jack, my love, I am sick. Please go away. I am laughing to myself. Masha is sick with a hangover. She told a little lie to Inga when she said she could hold her alcohol better when she was younger. Bullshit. She's never been able to hold her liquor, and the hangovers I've experienced with her, well, they are never pretty. Hell, if I had half the hangover she had, it would probably force me to stop drinking. I wander back to the seat and suddenly remember that Ivan was playing with Sharik when we hit the downdraft. I head toward the front of the plane and call, Ivan. Ivan. Inga jumps up and asks, Jack, what's wrong? I explain to her, Ivan was playing with Sharik when we hit the downdraft, and I need to make sure he's okay. Inga joins me, and we both call, Ivan, Ivan. We make it all the way to the front of the plane and finally find Ivan. He's curled up on Tom's lap. Sharik is on the floor beside them, and they are all sleeping. Inga remarks, Tom is so good with Ivan. It's a shame he doesn't have children. I nudge Inga's arm and suggest, well, you could stop taking your birth control and cure that problem. Inga shocks me when she frowns and replies, Jack, I only wish that Tom and I were doing the horizontal mambo. The old fart refuses me all the time. I sputter, are you telling me that Tom's not straight? Inga giggles and says, no, and he gets very offended if you ask him that. He has this crazy idea that he's too old for me. I declare he must be crazy. Inga says, it's worse than that. I found out that he has waitresses in virtually every truck stop that Sif's truck stops at. I think for a moment, grin at Inga, and say, Inga, I might have it figured out. Inga prods me, well, don't make me beg you. I pronounce, Inga, you're too good of a woman for him. She interrupts, Jack, I don't think you're right. I'm just like every other woman. It's my turn to interrupt. No, Inga, that's not what I mean. You telling me that Tom sleeps with nasty truck stop waitresses, and not you means that he has issues having sex with what he considers a good woman. Inga processes my thought and says, you know, you might be right. I've never seen him look or flirt with any women other than the truck stop waitress. So what should I do? I smile at her and suggest, well, your team is headed out on a mission. When you guys set up at a truck stop, go in and get a job as a waitress and flirt the hell out of the customers. It should drive Tom crazy. Inga foolishly asks, do you think they will hire me? I laugh and say, hell yeah, they will. You look better than most of the women that work there. Hell, you will probably make a killing on the tips. Inga laughs and says, thanks, Jack. I hope it works. Inga's laugh starts to wake Tom. He stirs and asks, you hope what will work? Inga's quick thinking saves our goose when she says, Jack was giving me some suggestions on how to fire a pistol better. Tom says, hell, I've forgotten more about firing a pistol than that old fart ever knew. If you want some pointers, I can give them to you. Jack counters, like hell. I can shoot rings around your groups any day of the week. Tom changes the subject again when he says, by the way, I took care of your boy again. When are you going to start taking better care of him? Jack teases the shit out of me. It looked to me like you were using him as an excuse to take a nap. I guess that happens when you're older than dirt. I try to get up, but I can't because Ivan is on my lap. I slide him off my lap, stand up, go nose to nose with Jack and say, I can take you any day of the week. Inga comes between us and says, both of you, be good or I will have to spank you. I look at Inga, can tell she isn't kidding, so I say, we will settle this later when Inga's not around. Jack says, no problem. There's a shooting range at the cabin. Dear listeners, Next part of the story will be released soon. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.